Okay, welcome to another project out of town, helping some friends out. They bought this beautiful property that's trimmed out in everybody else's backyard, which is cool. And it came with these, what I would call like commercial buildings, or they're unique outbuildings. I hadn't seen anything like this where I'm from in New York State. I mean, I have, but not on a farmhouse property like this. It's kind of cool. Both of them are first floor concrete block, second story stick framed. They call this one the Freddie Mercury one, if you know what they're talking about to look at it. It's got a dirt lean-to on one side of it and a concrete pad on the other with a overhead. That one is wildly, I mean, this to start with is a 2x4 ledger, 2x4 framing on 16-inch centers, and it's got this fiberglass, or it might not even, actually, it is, I think so, heavy stuff. That has got a lot of structural integrity, and I think it's part of, or a lot of the reason why this isn't just ripped right down. That, and it's not in Western New York State, it's a couple 100 miles south, which helps. They don't get a lot of heavy snow load out here. But I was just laughing with my buddy Jay about how he wouldn't get away with this for a decade in New York without it just being smashed in. This is on 3-foot centers, or 4, 2x6 framing with some blocking. But again, you get a bunch of structural integrity out of that corrugation. So that's this is what they got basically when they bought the place. They've moved a bit of stuff in downstairs. And on this side, it's got a shed so that somebody came out onto this concrete, lightly framed it, covered in T111 or some, oh, that's like some other kind of material there. With like this, what up? Kind of garden shed situation. One of the windows is in here. 2x10 on 24-inch spacing on an actual framed wall as a ledger at the back, and out on the framed wall here with vented soffit. You can see the sunlight coming in, but you know, there's also the sunlight coming in over there, so it's definitely something. They want to make changes to this whole situation here, so we may see some more of this in the future, but somebody finished closing this in. The idea being back here anyway, that they would make a deck and walk out on it from upstairs. We'll get up there, but because that's where the project is. But then there was a door here back in the day that somebody omitted. This is a notch. We got a downspout, kind of a low area here where all the water, not downspout, I guess it's not it doesn't have a downspout, but everything pours on the ground right here and tries to make its way over that way. The drains and water supply for the bathroom upstairs, it's a studio apartment upstairs, or it's a 1-bedroom apartment upstairs actually. This has got a half bath down here, and that's the drain stack and water supply and stuff for the kitchen and bathroom that are on this end of the upstairs apartment. This freezes and they've had trouble in here, so they have a little plug-in, you know, electric radiator or heater thing to keep this shut, and it's got, I don't know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch of foam on the walls in there. Don't use this door right now. So let's go upstairs. First order of business, we did a site measure here and drew what exists. And actually started on this graph paper, went out and got a bigger architectural pad with 1/8-inch divisions. Opposite the bathroom at the back on the first floor is this big step up for some reason. And I think that's the concrete pad. It goes right on down and over here to this point. And then this had an extra, like, super dense fiberglass or cellulose or some kind of insulation product added to the block wall, which is over there, and then some kind of hardboard or material onto that. The ceiling used to be here in here. Unsure. This had a big heavy door. No, it's just a big deep portal. And then somebody cut the top off of a door to put on here. Not sure. Unsure. Anyway, Jay's wife does a lot of fiber dyeing and fiber artwork and stuff, so this has worked for them as a you know, not for garments out here, but washer and dryer, slop sink. It's important to have for them. But they've had insulation issues in here too. Again, all kinds of water supply and stuff in here, and another electric heater to warm this up, because basically this isn't heated at all. And that's where I began with this, and I was saying, you know, people take them for granted, but you're either in a ranch house or something, on a slab on the ground, and the ground's 50 degrees, and your house is on top of it, or you're on a basement, and then the air in the basement's about 50 because of the ground, and your house is on top of it. But heating a space over 50 degree sort of bubble or temperature is a lot easier than heating a space over a big bubble of frigid outside air. So downstairs not being heated has been an issue in here. But this is that one-bedroom apartment. Stairs come up in the middle here. This door goes out onto what you can walk on over that shed. Just tar paper, or not tar paper, but some kind of like ice and water shield or roll shingle or something like that. 2x6 roof system. 2x6 ledger or 2x8. I don't know. And then just go to the store, and this is again like how it was when they got here, but like L brackets. Ugh. These are all on here with Phillips. Total garbage. That stuff's cool. It can be power washed. It's translucent. It's very heavy duty. It's a polymer for the most part. It's a cool material that I wouldn't just discard. But I think it'd be cool to rebuild something like this over here, if it's a larger deck with a roof system slung underneath of it, so that anything that comes through it goes right, you know, maybe even reuse that again, just attached to the underside of whatever deck we build down underneath here and just drop it so the water runs off of it. TBD. But for now, kitchen's over here. Bathroom is over here. The depth of it is shallower than the depth of the kitchen, because that's where that notch is out back. This is unique in here. I can't get in here with my fat tool belt on. But this jamb is like planar with the wall on both sides, and that's so that they could have a 60-inch nook in here for a full-size tub. Why you didn't just put it over there, it's beyond me. But that's how they decided to do it. One of the best things about this space up here, and obviously it was a residence 20 years ago. It's got like a 90s kitchen or an 80s kitchen in it and stuff. It's got all ranch finishes and stuff up here. But the coolest part is that the ceiling is actually at like 10 feet, not 8. So we're going to push this all up. It's clear span, 2x10. It's 20 feet across in here. It's way more of a span than you really want to do with those. And you'll also notice that it's balloon framing. I don't know, is this going to help or no? Not really. It's balloon framing. I can't get that to expose. Maybe I can turn my helmet light on. Does that help? Anyway, those joists are just nailed to the side of studs, and they don't even reach to the back of the shielding outside. They only pass the stud's width by like halfway. They don't even go all the way over it. It's crazy to me. It's just, you'd never get away with this where I live. A couple 100 miles south, and they haven't had the snow loads. They haven't had trouble with that. So that means that none of these walls in here are load bearing, because you can see they've just tagged up to hold them up plumb. And this, I don't know why they kept this over this entryway, because that doesn't need to be here either. So that's going to go. The ceiling's going to go up throughout the entire space. And so I did a site measure, and this is, as we look at it, is as we stand in it. So we're standing here, and there's this utility room with the forced air, and that's the cold air return and the heat that comes out to us here. It also returns cold air in the bedroom and pushes heat out into the bedroom. So to both sides like this. Electrical panels right here. And then there's a closet and a bathroom that you get in over here. Door opens out, which is irritating. Little half bath here, and then this super dingy deep closet here. Lots of windows in here, which is nice, but here's that utility room. Right? There's the panel. Nice little furnace. Everything's just as you would like to see it without a lot of stuff stored against it and cleared out, but it's just not ideal being right in the middle of the layout. So what are we going to do? Well, I looked at everything here after I was done with the site measure, and I figured, you know, what we could do here is we'll take this whole, like, what looks like a header thing out of the ceiling right there. That won't be here. This will go right on up, stick out a little bit here. This is where it is now. We're going to back it off more than a foot. That's that little wall there. We'll back him out of our face. He's even deeper than a fridge, and I don't know that the fridge is going to go here in the future, so we'll back that over there. The bathroom, all of this tricky business here is something I would love to change, but it's not going to be part of the scope. And here's where the stairs come up here and need some headroom, and then they turn and they step up over there. You know, they cut into the room until you're not at the height of the floor up here until you're to this point. If I had it my way, since that's already cut out of the floor system here, and so is this to a certain extent, I would put the stairs down the wall here, downstairs. So you'd go right on up, and you'd come right on up here. And when you arrived at this level, you'd make a right, and you'd step out into this space, and the door would either obscure the bathroom door or probably more likely go the other direction. So it'd be right-hand in swing at the top up here, and that would be what I would like to do. For now, we're focused on this left-hand side here because all this stuff up here is going to go in there once that's complete, and then we can, you know, broach the subject of what to do out here. So I'm going to come back to the idea of maybe let's change around those stairs in the future. But for now, let's take this closet and this bathroom and just completely get rid of them. It's a half bath to start with. All the other plumbing is right over here, and this is like just really far away from it. And it'll open up this room more, and you can keep this door for right now and go right on into what you call the bedroom. We'll take this door from here and we'll move it up to this wall, and we'll have it open, I think, out at us because it's just a little bit of a utility room. You can open to the left toward us here, but we'll slide it over some too, about as close as we can get to the electrical panel. So we'll go from here over to there, and then there's room for shelves all the way down and all the way down there. So when you open this over here occasionally to pop in there, the door will swing around over this way, but there's all this shelf room here, all this shelf in front of you here, all the way over to there, and then still plenty of floor space here to come in here, and you'll be right at the panel to deal with that, or the furnace like this. I think that maximizes what you've got for a utility room. And it opens this room a lot, you know, opens it up a lot more. You still have this giant bedroom. And the thing about that is in the future, that could be divided in half. And you could have two giant bedrooms in here, and you could go back to having a door in from over here and a door in from over there. You'd have a two-bedroom apartment up here. But for right now, they just want to keep that one giant space. I think we're going to do a closet at the end here. By just pushing a wall in a little bit here and a wall in a little bit there, because there is a window here and there's a window here. So that would allow you to put bars across like this and like that, and that would be just here. But from the bedroom, you'd have just like a portal here that lets the sunlight come right on in here. A bit of a wall there, a bit of a wall there. And as you step in, you've got wardrobe right up on both sides, or you could put shorter, you know, chest of drawers there. What's the word I want? Dresser, vanity, just a full-length mirror on the one side, a bunch of different options. And you still have like a 12 or 13, 14 by 12 giant bedroom with a super high ceiling, which will be really nice. And that's what we're going to do at this point. So we're going to get started here and demo a bunch of this stuff out, and then we'll come back and look and see how much of a difference it makes. But I think it was a bad idea to keep the ceiling this low up here when they had the overhead room to begin with. And it's a bad idea to just obscure so much of the sight lines and stuff that people have, so many of the sight lines here. There's a bathroom window just there, so as soon as we take this back to about here, you'll have more sunlight coming in over there as well. I think we're going to fix this up quite a bit. We're going to take it into the 21st century. Well, we got right to it, basically. Opening things up. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of light fixtures. It's just part of the whole deal. I keep looking at those Milwaukee battery work lights and dreaming about how wonderful it would be. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of money spent on a couple of those, and I just can't swing it right now. So we work in the dark. I've got a headlamp, but it runs out of batteries. I don't know what to say about this construction job in here. This layout in this wall, I mean, it may look a bit consistent, but I can see by eye that this is different than that. I mean, it's all way more than 16 inches on center. It's rough sawn lumber. It is at least 3.5 and not like a true 2x4 or anything funky like that that'll really screw you. But it's going to be a bit of an art project. Maybe this makes it clear. It's so hard to see stuff up here, but like this distance here just goes... I mean, this is ostensibly pretty level. This goes way up on the right-hand side, and it's just been like reefed or ripped up, and I don't know. I just don't understand. I just don't understand how this came to be. It's a double-edged sword because a lot of people say that they can't understand what somebody was thinking when they dig into an older construction project. A lot of people are baffled with relatively ordinary stuff. I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard, but I've seen a lot of shit, and this is really something. Anyway, some demo points. You really want to get through it all. Every step you want to get through all the way before you go to the next one, but demolition is one of the ones that people basically... I don't know what it is. They can't see the forest for the trees. But, you know, not only do you want to remove all the stuff that you're not going to need, you want to think about how much material you're going to want gone to start and take off and continue with ease. So, you know, this was all drywalled up and over the top of this door and down again. We're going to fill in this door, but I wouldn't frame in that doorway opening and put a piece of drywall over that and then try to blend the seam all the way around the three sides of the door. We'll just start somewhere that we can get onto something solid. We'll go right over everything to the new corner, and we'll go right on up to the new ceiling, and that'll be a much easier way to patch that drywall. Same here. We went back to a stud. It just worked out that this drywall is installed vertically instead of horizontally, which is more like what you do now. But it worked out great because the edge of a vertical piece was on the halfway point in this stud, and so I can continue to frame here and then start my new drywall sheet on that old stud and keep going. So we got back that far. Another thing I'll mention is all the little nails, all the little baseboard nails that don't come out when you pull it out, all the trim nails that don't come out when you pull it. Any of these, somebody came through here, it used to be carpeted, but all of this carpet pad staples, I'm going to pull those out of the threshold I got everywhere else. All the linoleum tile. You don't want anything to get hung up or caught on. Like, see this here? All those drywall nails that were in the edge of the sheet that we took away. I'm going to pull those all off, and they always trap this little piece of, broken off drywall in there too. That's all got to come off. It's not truly ready to come back and construct here yet. You've got to dot all your I's and cross all your T's, or you'll be ready to do drywall or something, and you'll have the tool set up for that, and then you'll have to switch and come back and do. You never want to mix up your steps. The jambs, the doors, they're cheapies, but it really isn't a significant improvement to buy cheap interior doors these days, and it's still a relatively significant amount of money to buy a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them. So we're going to try to reuse these. This stop never got painted. I guess it is stop, but it's like not ranch stop like the rest of the doors and stuff are. And a lot of doors you'll find, especially interior, especially natural wood finish, are installed to the framing first without any stop on them with a pretty good, like a 16 gauge finish nail or some like real heavy finish nail, and then the stop's applied later when they're dialing in the door. But if you rip it out and then get started trying to blast the nails backwards to pull them out, any of them that are under the stop, they'll just blow a big hole out. I'm telling you this because I knew it and forgot, but you'll get something like this where it blows a big part of the stop out of it, and then I went, oh yeah, that's right, shit. So that'll give you a sense of, it's an individual thing. If somebody was in here and they were mounting all the doors that way, now you want to keep a lookout for it. So that's what I did. If somebody didn't put the doors up that way, that's not a worry that you'll have, but you want to kind of establish something like that and then use that to your advantage. I'm going to take the old flange off tomorrow and try to get the water supply down and out of here, the vent, take the vent out of the roof. I don't know if I'm going to go up there and try to patch this. I think it's a one-piece rubber roof, so I might leave it coming through and just like use some great stuff around it to hold it, and then go up and glue a a PVC cap over the top of it, so it's just something for somebody else to deal with in the future. I'm torn on that, because it's the type of thing that all of a sudden you have a mysterious water leak mark coming in and nobody knows what that's from. But I mean, if you were going to have a vent there, it would be worth having the hole in the roof, and the hole's there already. Decisions. Talked about leaving this and it servicing the whole place. I realize now that it's got a line of hot air feed that comes down, and it comes down through here and it comes out in the kitchen, and that wasn't a worry to me because we're going to raise the ceiling up and mix up the air up here a lot with big fans. But the bathroom has its own, it's over in there, see it on the ceiling. The bathroom has its own hot water supply, or hot air supply, which is going to be important. And so we can't go that way in above the plane of the ceiling because the joists run this way. So I think since we're nearer to this wall, we'll go this way, probably with rigid rectangular, and then we'll just stay above the plane of the ceiling. Then we'll roll down and keep rigid rectangular tight to the ceiling and tight to the wall all the way down here. And then we'll roll up into the appropriate bay again and come along, up above the plane of the ceiling, and basically push hot air once again into the kitchen, whether it's exactly the same place or not, and do the same thing in the bathroom again. But what that'll mean is there'll be a rectangular rigid duct just through here for a little bit of a stretch, and it's just a little bit easier to clad it and soften it out and cover it with drywall. I don't like to see that stuff. It's pretty inelegant, but I don't know that it's worth a big saggy baggy tube and then doing a more meticulous job of framing out a square soffit box. We'll see. The idea being that we want to minimize its presence and sort of draw no attention to it whatsoever, and probably tuck it over here on this side. Not to mention going over there, I'm going to have to tunnel through, although there is a benefit to this, because if we go over there, it's a bit further to go over there, but then you've only got to see it here, and it's immediately obstructed by all of this business, whereas on this side, it goes another, 5 or 6 feet anyway. I don't know, 6 and 1/2 dozen. I'm still up in the air about it, no pun intended. Anyway, I'm going to be sure of things like those little nails and stuff, and the demo is over, and then move into construction of framing and supplementation of framing in preparation for finishing, and then next will be electrical routing. I'm going to just talk briefly about how you get started here after you've gotten things taken away. And then, where you planned on not needing them or wanting them anymore. And then a bit further, like getting to a point where materials are ready to take off and construct from, going beyond the fundamental essence of what you want to remove to make sure that, technically speaking, you can start and use conventional methods to continue in the direction that you want. Then you're going to start constructing things. Where do we begin? Well, in this case, we're going to fill in this old doorway, or we're going to fill in this portal or whatever here, this space here that used to be a pathway, and cut a doorway hole in it, because it used to just be a simple outside corner. So to start with, I don't leave the threshold out of the framing on a door opening. Almost everywhere you're going to see guys build the wall, frame up the door opening, and the last thing they do is they cut out with a Sawzall the little piece of threshold that's been there since the beginning. So you want to just stick a floor plate down to begin with on the floor, and then work upward. But you also, when you put it down, you don't want to put a bunch of fasteners in it or bury them right where the king and the jack are going to be for the doorway opening, because those are going to require a lot of fasteners in that location. So as a best practice, you are going to make a framework, a bottom plate and a top plate that are plumb and aligned to one another. Then you're going to fill in the end, which is just, at that point you don't even have to do much besides measure the distance, and you can use the edges of the top plate and the bottom plate to locate it on the wall, and you'll frame around everything, and then you'll mark out the doorway opening. So given that you're going to add a 2.5 inch all the way around, I stay at least that much, if not twice as far, 3 inches or so, with one fastener at one end and at the other end when it's time to hold him down, and that's enough for now. And then when I'm more sure of what pieces of wall will be here and what will be missing for a threshold, I can add a couple more fasteners to attach us to the floor. So long story short, that's the way that we'll put it down. But how are we going to align it in this case? Well, we know at this side we want to be physically, you know, flush with this older framing. Now this older framing is more like 3 5/8 or almost 3 3/4 mil, rather than 3 1/2, which is what we mill 2x4s at now. So it overhangs a little bit. So I just split the difference on that. It overhangs on both sides just about the same amount. And I put a fastener in there about 3 inches from the end to avoid, you know, if I attach the edge of it. The idea being here, if you need to make changes, you don't want him hidden under the end of the stud. And anybody, you know, immediately with your project, and for renovating purposes, it'll be nice when somebody comes by someday if they're trying to take this wall down. I normally deal with nails because that's the area that I'm just taking apart, but I have sympathy for people 20 40 years from now who are trying to take apart my framing, and hardened screws are in the way, and they also can't be seen. They're buried, and I have pity on people trying to demolish or take apart things that were built by people like me in this era, where they're probably orders of magnitude more difficult to disassemble. Long story short, so I commit there. Okay, when I've got this end pretty close, you know, to visually square here, so that I'm not tweaked way out, you know, the gap isn't tweaked way out, but I'll pin it so it's close. And then I just, for this situation, I got a measurement from the face of framing to drywall over there. It was 46 1/2. So I know it's 47 to the actual other framing to framing. I can double check that here too, but see, I'm moving away from one end. So at the one end, I had no choice but to hit drywall, 46 1/2. So if I go over here, it's 47 because there is no drywall there. So I push the tape to the wall, and I come back and forth here. You know, after I measured and cut a piece that was the right length, I go back and forth until it says 47 on the tape aligned to this side, and pin it there, and that's basically where he'll live forever. Then in the past, you could use the longer the level, the better, use it as a plumb, 6 8 foot, but even here you'd have a hard time getting a line on anything up there. I could kind of tell that it would be between these two joists, but it seemed like there was a chance that the plate could be just attached to this one joist, so I wanted to be sure. So I don't have a long enough level, but I do have Jay's laser level. And so then I just set it up here. Now I'm coming at it at an angle, but I've got the vertical line hitting the side of this plate right here, so I can be sure that that's a plumb line all the way up, except when the plane changes, if we go farther away or come nearer in any regard, because our angle of attack with the laser is in an angle, it can mess us up. In that case, we'd want to swing that laser all the way around to me so that we were shooting straight at stuff. Then it's more accurate when you get up there. Be that as it may, I set this block, I measured it, should be 14 1/2. It was 14 1/4. I nailed it in from both ends. Once the laser went up, I could see I wouldn't be anywhere near this joist, so I knew I'd need a block in there. So I put that block in there, and then where the line goes up and hits that block and then takes off at the angle that the laser's coming from, I know that that's where I could throw a perpendicular pencil line across that block, and I'd know that's where the face of this top plate needs to be. And then I had to look down the joist bay, and I could see all these old not old, but existing electrical lines were going to work as a sling. And then I pulled a measurement down here to see that if I needed an 8 or a 10 foot piece up there to cover the distance from here and a little bit farther, and it was about 9 feet here, so I needed a 10. So then I slide a 10 up over the duct and over those wires, and then I pull it over here. And then I look down it to see that the gap is, you know, taking for granted that the joists are probably nice and perpendicular to the wall here. Keep the gap pretty similar just for temporary purposes, and shoot him up into that block while he's aligned to that pencil line. And then I can come down here and take a measurement for the block down here, which is a 14 1/2, which is what the spacing should be. If I had built all of this and it was 14 1/4 measuring over there, I might have blasted it open to 14 1/2 and put a 14 1/2 in as a best practice. But this is really old lumber, and it's just spiked on, and so we're just not going to disturb it. So I cut to fit that block, which normally you wouldn't do. You use a block to, if you have to put in a block, you put in a block that should theoretically fit, and you make it fit. That's a best practice. Anyway, now what's left to do is take this and go back and forth here to try to plumb to the rest of the wall. So I'll probably move that laser down here and just throw a line, probably. I won't change the angle of attack. That adds too much complexity for this here. So I'll look for the line to come right down where the wall, witness is here, left from where the plate was. It'll go right up the side of that 2x4, and it'll throw a red line on that block. I'll just push this plate out of the way. I'll copy the line with a pencil, and then it won't matter when I'm on the ladder that I'm standing in the way of the laser, right? And I'll take the end of that plate to the pencil, and I'll shoot him on there. And then I know also that he's a bit too long here. I mean, I can see it, but I knew from measuring that. And then I'll be able to build up. I can actually add a 2x4 at the appropriate length from here to there, add it to the end here, just add him to that 2x4, and then go back and forth with him until he's aligned to that plate and pin him there, and that'll control, because this wall's got a bit of a wonk and a wiggle now because I've taken a lot away. Then I can fill in this end, and then that's our frame, you know, as to imagine that this is part of it now. We've framed the opening. Then I'll choose the location of the door opening, and then apply the king marks and the jack marks based on that. And I'll measure for the kings. I'll take them up and plumb them up. So I'll have 2 kings in here. And then I can build the doorway to the kings. I can put 2 jacks of the same length in, built to them. I can slide the header piece down onto those. I can add cripples on either side of it. And then I can, whatever, copy the layout or just put my own in here for the start of this, for as far as we're going to need to work. In fact, that's what I will do. I'll start a layout here and do a nice 16-inch on center layout. And I'll continue it into the block that goes up and over this wall. And I'll continue it around the corner and stuff. So all the drywall that I need to add will be easy to do. And once the doorway's all in here, then I will cut out that threshold piece, and we'll have our new space here. And that's how you do a nice job of working through the right steps. And, you know, because I was doing this and I was thinking, you know, some people might have like studs in here, trying to get them to go up and then do something with the end of them. It's an order of operations puzzle. But hopefully that's illuminating to anybody that's right on the cusp of having a command of that idea, because Lord knows I didn't do a very good job of explaining it. And if you don't know any more than that, you probably have a hard time following what I'm saying. Not that I'm that smart. It's just that it's really esoteric. But I felt like talking this morning, so there you have it. All right, so as discussed, I got the kings and jacks in here. Kings were cut to fit the space. Jacks were made the same, and the header was made according to what it should be up there, you know, given the bottom. So it was the kings were sitting a little bit open, but they were pulled over to the header, which keeps this opening the same width overall. Now again, hard to see given my wide angle lens and stuff like that, but quite clearly this goes up on the left hand side. And I knew this probably had like a belly in the floor here, because this is a clear span floor just as it's a clear span ceiling, and it's a bit, you know, almost, it's at least 6, 7, 8 feet longer than you are allowed to do with 2x10 in a construction application today. So it's been here for a long time, probably about 100 years, and like I was saying before, I'm going to add ledger notched in to the studs underneath the ends of these, because it's balloon framing and it's going to stay balloon framing. I could notch completely out and put a pair of plates in there to make it the way that we build things today, but I wasn't willing to completely rely on the board sheathing outside to hold everything up while it was a notch over the period of time that it took me to get a couple plates in there. This way we'll leave more than half of the width of a stud intact and just add vertically, you know, a 2x4 horizontally that's tipped up on the vertical and cross section underneath it. That being said, I'd be remiss if I didn't find out if we could do something about this saggy floor. It's down about 1.5 inches. I threw a level laser line in here and I checked it where it's sitting on the foundation wall on the outside, and I came down in the middle here, and like I say, 1.5 inches too low. So what I did was, it was another nice, here's the first opportunity that the site measure really comes into play and is nice to have. The first kind of time was important to discuss how we would change the layout between existing, shown in red, and green is the new idea and plan here. But now we need to talk to an architect and see if we can do a 32-foot span with some kind of a beam and not need to put a post like in the middle or 2 posts, or if we need 1 post, we'd like to justify it to the right as we're looking at this here. Basically maximize the depth of the clear span garage before we get to a post. However, that post is, or excuse me, that beam has got to die into or sit on top of a header beam of some kind over the garage door opening that's downstairs. And we'll look at that. But this is the building from the front. There's a garage door opening, and we need to build what's shown here in green for a header so that the beam, it probably has to be taller than what'll fit in the floor system, so it's going to hang down to some degree. But at some point, the door goes up and then rolls back into the building, and we can't have that hanging down beam, in the way of that. So we have a restriction on how tall, therefore it'll probably be wider. And then once we're on, so the building foundation wall or block wall, it's double thick here. This is one block thick, and it turns the corner and has got a second block layer there. And the red is the inside drywall surface upstairs here. So I can actually open up the floor and add 2 or 3 layers at least. Every one of these squares is 3 inches, so I've got, I could put 3, almost 4 layers down in from above and onto that, working from up here, and I could go downstairs, which is, that's to say, if I were to open up this floor right along the wall right here, there'd be concrete showing there and in the other corner, and I could build a beam here, and then would sit on top of that, or notch up and onto it if it hangs down, the beam that we need hangs down lower. And then when we notch down, that lower portion could go in a heavy-duty hanger that's attached to the face of this header, or something like that. And then we'd run along here. But this is the thing. There's a bunch of variables there. How wide, how tall, can we get a hanger to do what we needed to do in that application? So I was able to take a quick photo. I was able to show the desired center line of the beam and the fact that I can build a header over the doorway opening. I could show an end view not to scale this building the way that it's constructed, give a master span dimension here in terms of what we're asking the header to do, and then with a side view of the building I can show what we're asking the proposed beam to do for a span, and the fact that the joists upstairs are on a 16-inch on-center layout, and that this is basically how the building's constructed. It's a balloon frame with a level top edge appearance from outside, but then each consecutive rafter is hung a little bit lower according to a particular slope as it goes backward, from the front of the building to the back here, and that goes down, and then there's a drain or scupper type thing at the back, and it goes out and down like a downspout. Anyway, this communicates essentially the idea in 3 dimensions, and this gives him a scannable plan. I took a photo of this with my wide-angle lens, and he might be able to bring it into CAD as an underlay and quickly draw a scale-accurate CAD model here and do his calcs. I showed the scale here. Anyway, it's just nice to have had that all ready. In the past, when there has been no scale drawing, I'll just do some sketches and show the important dimensions from what I can tell on them, like I did here, but we'll wait for them to get back to us about that. Meanwhile, I'm going to notch in that ledger like I was talking about, so I just went up. It seems like, since the front of this is balloon framing, that first rafter is just like a ledger because he can be attached to every one of those studs, so it doesn't even go over into the wall over here, which is like another, like it should, and you would, and it's like, why didn't you, and why was this necessary here? I don't know, but so I'm basically not going to even try to get under that because he's attached to those studs all the way along, or could be, or will be, or I'll do that. So I started here, and I came down 3.5 inches from the surface of the joist and made a wax pencil line, and I did the same thing at about 10 feet down there, and then you can see my chalk lines hanging on a screw on that line, right? And then I just went up to this line and snapped it. And I'll double check that we got 3.5 inches under everybody here. If we don't, or there's a tight spot, I'll just take a little bit off of the 2x4 that I'm adding to accommodate that, or vice versa. I could take a little bit off the joist. But theoretically, there's a straight line under everybody here because the roof itself on top is flat, and theoretically every rafter is the same dimension. And so we'll get a 10-footer underneath there. Then I'll scoot the sofa out, put a 10-footer underneath there, and we'll be back to this wall, and that'll get me done. It'll give me something to do this morning. Meanwhile, we're waiting for my architect to get back to me with regard to that. And the idea is if we can come up with a solution to get this floor level, then we'll come upstairs once it's level and supported, and we'll work off of it to potentially push up the roof system because we ultimately have to run hot air down there. We were talking before in the video about doing it on one or the other side. But if we're going to send a beam down through the building, rather than cutting it up into this rafter system like we would try to do or would do downstairs, we just put it underneath the rafter system, but it would give us something to route the hot air along the side of it. Then the whole thing would get boxed around, and given the overall height up here, it'd be a nice compromise between that and hacking out the core of every one of these joists, which certainly could be done if that's what we decide that we want to do. So kind of a lot of stuff up in the air. This is one of those things where if it was like half inch, 3/4 of an inch, you know, anything under an inch, I would probably just say to hell with it. We'll just keep working up here given the cost of doing this. But 1.5 inches is really getting to be quite a bit. And you can see here as the door hangs over this floor, the gap looks legitimate at that edge of the wall. But as soon as you close the door, and I've got this problem at my place, and I'm going to solve someday by that I have to do a full foundation replacement. But if you come down here and look, you can immediately appreciate, come on, as soon as I can zoom in, you can immediately appreciate the situation as it manifests all over in here. You know, it's quite obviously twice as wide of a gap on the left-hand side. And things like that show up, you know, because the top of the door has to be level, the opening has to be framed level, the squareness of the door slab itself has to be maintained. People do cut to fit and stuff, but you can tell that if we were to slide this down and we're able to cut it to fit, then when you open it, it'll jam on the floor as you come around. It'll come tight at about halfway, and you have to, you probably can't even push it to 90 degrees. So these are the things that can't be fixed or changed. It's why we don't cut door slabs out of square. But if that's your rule of thumb, you've got relatively major investments elsewhere to make so that you don't have to do something like that. And just now's the time. Okay, so no interior walls are attached to the ceiling anymore, and to pick this stuff all up, it's just the weight of it, not a physical interruption, pushing and trying to push up the ceiling at the same time, which in some cases, you know, you could try and do that as well. If there had been walls in here and it had built when those things were level and all settled together, you could lift together. So let's see what happens here. Alright, we're ripping and tearing. You can't see what I've done here, but I've taken the first course of drywall off the ceiling, and lo and behold, you know, I said I bet you we'll get it all down and there'll be something so janky it'll be well worth it. Because I'd already started and experimented with the project, taking it down over here because we had that bathroom we removed upstairs, and lo and behold, it's right away PEX to copper, sloppy, nothing holding anything whatsoever here. And if anything, that run is sitting on the top of the drywall, which is freezing cold air down here. So if something should burst, pop, let go, and leak, here it is all down here, which I've already had trouble there too. This one here, my buddy put a freeze valve thingamajigger on there, but you can see up there it's just peaking, but it's pushed to connect or expansion PEX again. Anyway, I guess I spoke too soon. I wanted to show, I was just about to load up the dumpster, but what else did we find? Well, varmints we found. If you've got heat or bedding or food, usually is the biggest attraction for varmints. But this is nothing but a mouse nest up here. This entire space. I mean, we were going to leave, I was going to take the insulation down and bring it back later, but this will all be, I've thrown it on the floor. It'll all just be thrown away. It's nothing but soaking, piss stained. I can't get this to zoom in, but poop. Look at the poop everywhere that came pouring out of here. And I didn't like to start with, this is the main panel to this building, which is a sub panel to start with. And then the feeder went through here, and it goes way over there and up to the panel in here. So there's 20 or 30 feet of heavy 3-conductor feed wire. I don't know exactly the and here's the ground for that. But look at this. I mean, this is, oh, come on. Flash. Oh my God, I'm going to smash this phone. There's your little nest getting started here, tucked up all inside. Here's his little treats, you know, but it's like right on top of that. And then, you know, you get a little itchy, or, you know, you have a mind to start chewing on that. And when it blows and shorts and roasts that animal alive, that's the old line over there. Then it starts a little fire here, and it's all packed in around it. Look at perfect. A couple little pieces of bridging, perfectly dry, just 100 years worth of drying. Small sized, fuzzy, rough sawn kindle, and a little bit of tinder. And then you got some serious, you got some tongue and groove up there for the flames to lick up in there or whatever and get started coming up. And then it could burn a little hole out through there and really get some oxygen and suck that in here and go, and the whole place just burns to the ground because some asshole had to put 5/8 drywall in the ceiling here for the sale of this house, and he was a hack job. He was a hack. All of this is just hack. Way too many screws. Big time rush. I mean, this here isn't how you're supposed to do insulation. Insulation should be filling the bay and maintaining as much air volume as possible. Not kinked over in half and jammed up in there like that. I mean, that's the way so much of it is. I didn't disturb a lot of that there. It's all just crammed in by hand, and it's not how it's supposed to be. You don't get nearly as much R value out of it when you got all that, crushed down and the densities, higher and stuff. Just stupid, stupid, stupid. So I felt kind of bad because it does meet code and stuff with the 5/8 up here. And it was otherwise, too many screws. Who cares if you never pull it down? But this is this overwhelming pea smell here, and they're coming in somehow. And I'd rather get it all opened up and see just exactly how they're coming in and stop that from happening, rather than leaving it together and trying to imagine how it's happening in the future or something like that. So all things considered, this will be well worth doing already, although we do have quite a ways to go. Nothing for it. Just got to keep moving, nose to the grindstone. Boom, like a laser. Nice and flat. Okay, I was able to build that 2x8 beam out in the yard. We walked it in. Now that was after we laid out all those 2x10s. I'm not sure how much video I did or didn't get, but the phone's been giving me trouble. We laid half the 2x10s out, sent them over snug to the concrete wall, snugged them all up as a group. Made measurements on both edges of the group at 16 inches, 4 inches in from both ends, so we weren't risking tearing it out or splitting it out, and snap chalk lines all the way like that, and then 2 inches in from the edges of every one on both ends, snap chalk line all like that. Started all of our screws into those all the way to the far side of the lumber, so we had the shortest stack up possible, because we knew once we went up and onto the side of a joist, we needed room for the drill motor to go up in there. So we did have that with all of our screw guns, except for a couple places where there was a doubler already. It made the cavity so narrow. We ended up getting the Festool assembly right angle drill that my buddy has, and that got us in to do the last couple up. But now our floor is nice and level. Where's our plumb? Oh, I take it back downstairs. So I made the beam, walked it in, set it on the scaffold, put the shores up underneath it and screwed up into it through the plate in the shore, so the shore is attached to the beam. And then we put a heavy screw into the joist on either side of where we wanted the beam, at one end, the other, and in the middle, and made a sling from ratchet strap. And we just kept taking it up with ratchet strap, leaving some tight while we loosened some, took up the slack, and then went up some more, all the time letting the shores out and catching them up with the nut that bears the weight on them, so that we were always safe in terms of vertical drop and safe in terms of side to side as a result of these slings. And then we just used the laser, had a look at where the floor was around the edges of the building, and then we went there. We went to that same measurement with the beam now. So, and then we overdrove it in the middle by about 1/4 of an inch. So we crowned the whole thing. It kind of does this right now. The idea being, when it relaxes, it certainly won't drop any lower than level. And then we've just made sure push these up on the one side so that they're flush, screwed them in. On the other side, it pushed some of them down over. See, because once we had all the screws in, we we installed the new joists with the centermost hardware down the center of the building initially, and then we put the beam under it, let the shores down, and picked up. So we didn't have to somehow send the new ones up and over that beam, which would have never worked. So then it was a matter of buttoning up all the fasteners once we're in this position so we get both ends right. Now on the one end, you can push one up, but on the other one, sometimes you got to get underneath it with a piece of lumber, and then at the bottom, it's here somewhere. Put a long, there it is, a long like pry bar, and you can just take the end of the lumber up just for a second while somebody screws in. Anyway, once the ends are nice and flush and the middle's flush, it's just a matter of filling those all in, which many hands makes light work. Bit of a dreary day. You know, but we put all the sisters up yesterday with a couple people helping, and then took the beam halfway there and quit. This morning we took the beam the rest of the way, and it's not lunchtime yet. We're gonna have it all ready to rock and roll. Pretty awesome. All right, we got a bunch of help there. Put all these sister joists up, buttoned them all up. We had an 1.5 inch belly before, and we're down to a 3/4 inch belly now. So we made some serious gains here. Looks really good. Then another, we've been doing a bunch of stuff now. So then after I got to that point, I brought a couple shores up here. I had thought to leave it rigid and short up below and to push off of that here to get the belly out of the ceiling, but I realized if we did all of that, eventually when we take the shores away, there may be a net loss because the pressure of pushing the ceiling up. So I felt that pushing the ceiling up was still worth trying. I was on a plate here, and we put that long one across 3 joists upstairs, and I had a plate on the floor there as well. Shore here, shore there, and we pushed, but we left it on. That was after we took the beam completely out downstairs, so I could watch on the wall whether we were pushing the ceiling up more so or pushing the floor back down against the ceiling, and ultimately decided that we were just going to push the floor back down more than we'd like. So we didn't end up doing that, but we've also moved through this room, demoed the ceiling down to this point, got to the kitchen, and I'm starting to think that this is actually the back wall of the original building here, and the shed outside. There's concrete all the way down, and concrete under the shed, and then concrete underneath the laundry room that's a step up downstairs, which makes me think that it was originally outside and then it was finished out onto there. The joists in here are shorter, or I'm sorry, they're a smaller dimension. They're 2x6. If you can't see up in there, can't see a damn thing. This is 2x10, 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 and that goes right to 2x6, 2x6, and those 2x6 are sistered past one another, and they're on this wall. So this actual, between the bathroom and the kitchen, is a load-bearing wall in this back section of the house where the rest of it is not. And we've got the ledgers in. I don't know if I showed that. It's been a while since I did a video, but we're going to keep going with those new ledgers underneath this roof system. But the biggest change was pulling this floor opening back. I mean, it was way over there, and the floor was over to there as a result. And then above the stairwell, there was a ceiling in here, you can see, that was tight to practically to the top of the stairs. And then all of this space was just empty space in here. And you had Mr. Squirrel living behind the stamped steel tub right in here. Any of these areas that are dead empty spaces, they're like in movies and TV, but you really don't want them in your place if you can help it. You want the dimension of a wall's thickness, and then you want to be right into another live space. So anyway, we pulled that out of here, and now the ceiling over the stairwell is a lot higher over the landing. But we also cut this all back to here so that you had the appropriate headroom on your way up the stairs. It was a headbanger before. You'd smack into it on the way down. And even worse, on the way up, you don't see it coming until it compacts your spine. So we took it all the way back. So every little bit, it was right at the cusp here so that the wall plane could come through and there could still be a bathroom door here. So every little bit that we took, it immediately stopped you from being able to have a bathroom opening, a door for the bathroom here. So since that was the whole only issue, we took the whole way and we went all the way out to here. So now we're going to be planar with the old wall here, and the bathroom door is going to go right in here, and we'll put a pony wall right after it to make it feel more of like a piece of hallway on your way to the bathroom rather than entering and exiting right from this kitchen space, which is another something, you know, to avoid bathrooms and stuff opening right into the kitchen. But all things considered here, I'd rather that than smacking my head. The floor's a lot more level, and we're going to get back to building now too. Today is just fixing up this stairwell. These were level to here, and then if you can believe it, for some reason, somebody ripped this riser. It was, let me try to remember, this is 6 to 7 1/4, which is a full 2x8 here. No idea why. It forced this landing to be on a downhill angle here. So I measured down to a dimension that was equal to that, about 6, made a mark, snapped a line through it, and used the oscillating tool to take what I call a pie piece or a sliver out of there, and then we jammed a shore underneath there and picked that back up again. So it's opened this up here. So he's taken the landing up to level. That's about what I took out before. So now this lower staircase is going downhill on the left-hand side, but we've got this picked up right here. So I'm gonna go through the stringer here, which is what's notched for the step. I'm gonna go through the stringer, through whatever this layer of boards is on the side of it, right out through the side of this 2 layers of 2x4 here, which is like a 4x4 post. And I'm gonna put 2 through lock bolt replacement pieces of hardware through it. Then the landing will be locked up. And then we'll get and reset, and we'll get underneath the stairs, and we'll close the stair gap up and make sure that he's level. If I don't have to take a little bit more out of there, unsure about that. And that'll be level up here. And then I'll go through this stringer and through the post with through locks again, 1, 2, which will bear that. And then we probably just off the floor down here and kind of springy a bit low, and I'll just pick him up a little bit by hand or with a bar, and we'll just add pieces of we'll stack something up as a shim until this is plane level. So then we're level as a result of that, level as a result of the stringer edge being into this post here, level as a result of setting the landing up to the bottom edge of a parallel riser and bolting through this stringer into this post again, and then everything will be level and stiff and rigid. And we pulled the carpet off of it. I will probably see these openings and stuff. I'll go around and I'll screw down into through the tread into the edge of the riser isn't dimensional lumber. That's gonna kind of take the wind out. I will screw down into the edges of the stringer, and I may even backfill this with a big meniscus of construction adhesive, just some PL adhesive or something like that, just to make the most of these stairs. This is a little bit fakakta here from a big knot. I might pump those cracks and stuff full of construction adhesive as well. And the reason for all of this doctoring surgery is, if I were to replace these stairs, I'd basically have to rebuild them the same geometry, the same step height, same run and rise, everything as they are now, because we're stuck in front of this door here, and we're stuck, if you go straight way beyond this window, which is okay because it would be next to the lower stair here, but it doesn't quite clear the door opening, so that would have to move either a superficial amount or be totally lost and filled in anyway. And then you get all done and you have to take such an enormous bite out of the ceiling, the floor blocks upstairs, which I can do, but it's right in front of a window up here. So you sort of notch that way back, you're going to be right, you're going to have a box out where the window is in the stairwell and stuff like that. So you lose it in the big room upstairs. For now, that's totally doable anytime down the road, and we'll just leave the stairs for now, which is a nice compromise. And then we were talking about these animals getting in here. The door, when it comes down, is off the ground, off the floor. It's only 3 or 4 feet here before it actually touches down and is sealed the rest of the way. So you've got ingress there, this man door, this man door, this man door, which has been cut down, and then over the wall, because once again, these joists are 2x10, and as soon as you go in there, they're 2x6. So I'll probably add something on this side or the other. Full 1.5-inch dimensional lumber, slide it down tight with the top of this concrete, screw it in there, and do my absolute best to make sure it's a big project for Mr. Squirrel or somebody to chew his way in here. And a little place like that goes in and around, because this 2x10 is notched here, see that? And it picks up with whatever that trash is. So I actually might unbutton all of this and slide something in there that fits. I don't know. I just got to stop the animals here, stop the animals from sneaking underneath those doors by putting appropriate new exterior doors with gaskets on them. These are new window inserts that shut completely. Get the door somehow to come down and touch the floor, or make a little piece of something, or wall off and pour some Saccrete, which is shitty and dumb, but it'll keep the animals from coming in here. Then you can insulate with confidence and stuff more so, because before it was just full of animals and they'll just come right back again if you don't stop their ingress. All right. And then we're going to do a wall across here and a wall across here. But I think we are going to fly a headroom angled ceiling in here, which leaves that dead space that I was talking about. But they're going to take it by pushing in with a built-in pantry cupboard from this face here. So to stand in front of this wall right here, you'll be able to open the cupboard doors and you have floor to ceiling almost pantry, which will be really nice too. Okay. All right, I'm back in Pittsburgh. Was out of here for a couple of weeks. Not sure how much we looked at before, but we fixed up this floor. It's a lot more rigid, far less droopy. I got a closet framed up in the corner here. This is going to be like a master bedroom for my friend's like in-law suite here. So they're her parents will be living up here for the first part of this new place's life, and then they may use Airbnb in the future. Fixed up these stairs. Still not as nice as they could be. But if you were going to keep these stairs as nice as these stairs can be, and then you change how this all works. Headed that off, move that out of our face. And I'd like a short wall here where there was like an old like aluminum railing system thing before. But you're going to end up with this kind of wiggle syndrome. Normally you'd go right down through the floor surface and get attached to some of the framing. But that's actually the double pair of floor joists that the other joists die into, literally right behind these boards. So I think I'm going to go with 2x6 here so that I can be a little wider, and then that little sliver that's left after the width of 2x10s downstairs will go past them and anchor to the side of them, and that will create like rigidity here in this short wall. So I quit on that at that point. Now you may remember this from such films as Not Being Destroyed, like to this extent. We had hoped to keep a lot more of this, but the more that we dug in, the more it's become clear that the squirrels have been living everywhere in here. And not only that, it certainly isn't anywhere near appropriately insulated. They've had freezing water. This is the outside wall, and this is like a laughable amount of insulation. It's basically tinfoil with a little bit of fluffy shit on the back. It's just nowhere near what you need in here, and for our value. And as if that wasn't bad enough, you've got like electrical splices in here against the tinfoil. It was routed behind this vent, actually. I pulled it out of there to get a good look at it. That kind of sketchy shit. And then this is aluminum siding on this second story. The first story is block. Aluminum siding, and then like Homosote board behind that. And the animals have chewed through that. And as well as there being a problem with the roof around this vent, I would assume, or it's at least at the back of this long downhill slope, and it had been like a one-piece roof before that leaked, and now you've got like totally, I mean, look, this whole thing. I mean, that's not what an outside wall should look like. So that basically has to be completely reconstructed. And so I think we'll take it right off the end of the building, right out from underneath everything. That means, so to here, it's 2x10 full span, and then this one has a couple 2x4s under it, and then this 2x6 is slapped onto the side of this wall and goes over into there and is like toe-nailed in, and then these joists and these joists or rafters or whatever, it's so complicated, but they're all 2x6. See, that's a lot smaller over there than this is here. And since they passed, they've been nailed to one another. They are. But I'm hesitant to take this piece out of there because while the wall in here, I had been calling it load bearing, it was only built to about 8 feet, and then it just had a couple of sticks that went up and were slapped on the side of this 2x6. So that's all the more load bearing that it was doing, which is basically nothing. I got rid of it completely. It needs to be rebuilt. Now, luckily, I can put it in here planar with this wall and go right past this and get the top plate right underneath the passing ends of these first, and then it'll be a true load-bearing wall. Then I can slap that piece of shit out of there and finally cut the top plate back and out of there. But we're going to have to make some kind of a transition from this ceiling to this ceiling, or sister lumber onto these joists just to bring it down as a nailer or whatever, or to carry the plane of that full ceiling thickness over there all the way across in a nice smooth fashion, which is basically my inclination. You know, I would do it that way. In fact, I might this is what you get. What to do, what to do. You could put full length 2x10s on the side of those 2x6s, although they pass one another, so you can't get all the way onto one side of it. The load bearing wall being in here correctly will have to be enough. It was good enough basically before, but there's just a bunch of bullshit here that is so hard to do anything with. It seemed like walls and everything and stuff before, but it basically all needs to be torn down and rebuilt. Holes right through to the floor where the tub was, all the water damage that was here, and scab nail blocks over there. This jog in the vent pipe is unacceptable because it won't be able to be finished behind the plane of the wall and the plane of the ceiling. It would stick out, so it's got to be rerouted. All kinds of problems. So I guess we'll pull that off, essentially. Oh, and if you look under here, there's like this mansard roof section thing. That's where the squirrels come in outside. It starts here, but it goes well up beyond the plane of this roof because there's like a knee wall up there, and I got to get in there. I went up that ladder that's out there to look, and it's just full of squirrel nests, but you can't really work on a ladder with a full sheet of plywood over your head and get anything done without risking life and limb. So we'll have to get some scaffold set up or a man lift out back, and that'll be part and parcel taking that wall out. And whether or not this one comes out, I'm not sure. And like there's siding on the back of this here, and that's sheathing boards. Matched lumber or tongue and groove lumber is sheathing, so that's on this. So that's got appropriate sheathing. So I guess when we come around the corner, we got to get rid of this homicide. We're going to rip that open. So we'll have to get underneath the ends of these with an interior wall, and then pull that exterior wall off. That must be extra wide because it's on the block. I just have no idea what's going on. So why don't we talk about this later when I know more. Oh, if you want to know how I know it's squirrels, I mean, it doesn't take a lot, I guess, to figure that out. But we ran across the squirrel baby family, didn't we, fellas? There's 3 of them in here. Oh, little squirrel babies. Just trying to get Mama to come back. Maybe tonight she'll come back. I don't know. I feel bad about letting them get cold. I'll probably set them back in there on the floor tonight where we found them, in the same kind of stuff that they're used to for bedding. And it should be gutted and ripped apart to the extent that she can figure out with her little squirrel brain that it's not safe for them anymore. Hopefully they don't freeze to death. Anyway, let's look at this one. There's more to show. Alright, hopefully this footage is looking good. I have to constantly tell this camera what lens I want to use and that I want to take a video. It's pretty frustrating, but nothing that any of you should care about. Now, what are we going to do here? This wall is fucked, to put it technically. It's just not even anything anymore. Luckily, it's not load bearing. We've got this 2x6 system that goes about that far, and 2x6s that come this way. Now this is really load bearing. However, I've gotten everything out from underneath it. As soon as you get to here, these are, you know, one piece 2x10s. So I could see this coming, and I could see that it'd probably stay there in space. These 2x6s pass one another 3 feet or so, and they're nailed together. And then they've got these boards that come across from the whole 2x10s over and keep going. So you get some, you know, it's not as if, like in the movies, you know, we take the load-bearing wall and everything just falls down like it's made of, you know, styrofoam or something like that. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. So I've just been keeping my wits about me here and using my experience. I think that'll be just fine. But as you can see, the 2x6 that's plastered on the framing here, right there, goes over and dies into these couple 2x4s that are really like a double top plate in the wall that used to be here, but then they continued on because the wall hung down even though this was a pass-through. It's tacked into there. I don't really want to take that away until I build a wall like I was talking about. And the wall shouldn't be built on bare framing like it used to be. It should be built on subfloor. And so we got to do a subfloor repair here. We've got to do a subfloor repair there. And then I was walking around on this area, and I thought I remembered looking up when I was downstairs because it's super bouncy in here. So if we grab a light, that's not what that is, this is a light, and we go downstairs and look, there is a concrete block wall through here, and then separate floor systems after that. Oh, this is some debris that fell down. Here's our insulation waiting for the ceiling up there, and our 12-foot sheets of drywall waiting to be put up there, but we've found ourselves more to do before we can get to that. This is the room underneath the kitchen up there. And you can see the 2x10s coming at us from the bathroom next door. That's what's on the floor over there. But over here, there's 2x6s just stuck to the side of those 2x10s. Maybe I can zoom in on those. No? One gloved hand, one ungloved hand. Anyway, those 2x6s aren't sitting on the concrete wall. They're just nailed to the side of the ends of the 2x10s that go off in that direction. And they come across here. They're not sitting on this concrete wall. They're just toe-nailed into the ledger over there. So you can see underneath them there. It's completely inappropriately constructed. Not even full 4x8 sheets of subfloor. Nothing tongue and groove. I'd be willing to bet that that's not as thick as I would like it to be. Anyway, it's on 12-inch centers, like as if that does any goddamn good. And so that's all coming out, basically. Now, if we go next door, see, you can't get into the bathroom from here. But if we pop out, sorry, just getting over being COVID positive while I was home on a little break. Got to take it easy and be sick the entire time, basically. So that was cool. Anyway, to come around here, I'm basically going to prove what I could just tell you and have you believe me. Because you can trust Chazzy, you can trust me. I wouldn't steer you wrong. It's a clusterfuck. Anyway, you get over here and you look in this bathroom, which is where they've had freezing water trouble and problems since they bought the property. That has 2x10 joists, and there's the ends of those 2x6. Just an asinine way of doing things. I have no idea why somebody thought that was all that was necessary. But there's the old toilet flange and all this stack that goes down. I think that needs to all be plastic. That's my next kind of plan of attack there. That all needs to be just dragged out of here and turned into plastic PVC. This room needs some work. Anyway, we're going to rebuild that area of the kitchen floor. That'll allow them to use tile and stuff in there in the future, and it won't be as bouncy. Now, here's that jog between the bathroom and the kitchen. And my buddy said to me, since the roof system comes out over this thing as though it's an outside corner, we don't have foundation down here, but what's the harm in cantilevering the rim joist out here and the rim joist out here and filling that in and standing a wall underneath that roof system? And to me, it's like worth doing, because I guess I could have showed you when I was up there before, but now we can walk around and we can see. I mean, this is where the squirrels have been coming from back here. You can see the holes in that giant soffit area in that roof system that's hung out over there. They just crawl along the branches and come right in. We saw the little babies at the end of the last segment, but we're still waiting on Mama to come and get those tonight. But anyway, when I go up in here and I look over in that roof area, this outside wall has tongue and groove boards on it as sheathing. So this has, an appropriate construction, structural layer on the outside, same as this wall does. Then you go around the corner here and you're back to that homosoap bullshit. So because of that, because that's all just like to here, and then this is all just a bunch of conglomeration. Look at these braces to like hold that out at an angle, and a bunch of, look at the nuts and shit in here, and then somebody put wire to stop them coming in that way. I mean, you shouldn't have dead spaces like this, like I said in this series already somewhere, I think. You shouldn't have big open dead spaces like that, because it's a soft margin where animals can encringe and set up shop without you really knowing about it or being able to do much. And it's just the more they can rely on the space and use it, the more insidious it becomes and the more they can dig in. And now this is all water damage from roof failure. I thought it was from the vent penetration here, but I think it's a combination ice dam / whatever occurred. But that's like the backside of the new one-piece roof that has, it's white and you can see light through it. What are we going to do? I would really like to push the floor system out here, because this whole, these 2x6s right here that are on this area of whatever here, they go over there, and then they're just hanging on the end of the rim joist to that roof system. It's probably all sagging down out there. It's all just hanging out in space already. And it isn't appropriately framed whatsoever. I mean, this is completely compromised here, and then it continues. Oh, it doesn't even continue on. It stops, and then there's some other bullshit slapped on the side of it and whatnot. So I can copy or improve upon the fact that the rim
the ceiling rafter rims are hanging out into space and droopy and shitty, I could take the floor system rims out there out of 2x10 and in doubles and attach way back in here and laminate them all out and then go all out there and really fortify and I can even take, I could do full, maybe that's the way to do that too, because I'm going to want the joists out there. Oh, there's a load-bearing wall here. Sorry, I'm not aware where my framing is anymore. Well, there's a load-bearing wall all the way along. There's the concrete block all the way along there. So the thing to do is to get 2x10s that'll go all the way over there if I can get them here. I think that's about 20. That's going to be the rub. I'll have to use 2 16s and just pass them on here, but they'll pass one another so much and be shot together with nails so much they'll be as good as one whole piece. Anyway, that'll do a bunch to support that out there. Then you can get a real wall underneath it. Then you can get the wall underneath that roof and make sure the roof is out at the place where it should be in terms of elevation. And then you can take an ordinary exterior wall thickness out and over there, insulate it and finish it and put the window out in that wall. You can gain that much floor space in here and you're back underneath the roof the way that you should be as well as you can be without getting into digging and putting new foundation in downstairs and everything. But I can't endorse just covering this all back up and leaving it all as it is outside. And it's got shingles and finishes and stuff out there and trims and stuff that I don't want to get into cutting that all back and trying to treat a new edge to the one-piece roof system correctly, but it isn't good enough as it is, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do something about it. So I think we're probably in for trying to cantilever that floor space out there and replacing all this subfloor. And well, how am I going to do that? Well, I measured, first of all, I want to get this load-bearing wall in so that I've got all these rafters on top of something in, that's actually strong, and that's right on the concrete block wall downstairs. And so I've got no worries all the way to here, and then these last couple of rafters to both directions, I'm going to just stick like a 2x something on there, 6 or 8, just, screw him into that new wall that I put on and stick him on there edgeways and come over and get underneath these, and that'll be enough of a cantilever to keep those from going anywhere in the interim. Then I can pull this all out and pull all of this out and know that it can be reconstructed. But then and only then, once the wall's out, I'll start taking the surface of the floor all back to, where are we, this wall here. We're only going to there. So this whole area will be fresh. And then I can look at stretching the rim. I'll get this wall out of here, get the rim joist stress out of here, get the new joists all in there, and put everything all back with subfloor all on it. Then build the walls on the subfloor all the way up to the roof system again, and we'll be back and ready to rock and roll. I just have to have subfloor underneath this wall, and I don't want to do a sloppy job of it. So it's the sheets are going to go 90 degrees to the orientation of the joists. And so I measured from the wall over there, which will be as far as I can go with the subfloor. I can't get it back underneath that wall, but if I'm replacing all of it, I can start at the edge of the wall and cut it away. In fact, these are boards, and I can pull them up to the last one at the wall. Anyway, it's about 8 feet to just here. So that means I can cut back, like from the far side of this hole, and I could put a mark there and measure 48 inches to where 48 inches falls an inch or two this way, cut that all the way down over and cut it all the way out, and put basically one full 4x8 sheet of new subfloor down, glue it and screw it, then build this load-bearing wall and do everything that I described. And when we get all down to pulling the rest of the subfloor out later and putting the sheets all back down again, I know that one whole sheet can be trimmed up a little bit to sit right down in this space on the far side of the new sheet here, and I can start on the edge of that and go right across the room the rest of the way, and there won't be any fiddly business, puzzle piecing or anything like that. So a little bit of forethought will save you. I gotta do some measuring around in here. I'll probably stick on to the 12-inch centers, just because I don't feel like it's that wasteful right now. And I've realized in the past that making changes like that can screw you, although I can't immediately think of one reason why or why not. But that's probably in terms of costing this out, I'll figure 12-inch centers, and if we have extras, we can take them back. Maybe that's good enough. We're going to have the lumber ordered and delivered, so I'll have as many as I want to do 12-inch centers, and if I get involved into it and I feel like I could stretch it to 16s, we'll just have pieces left over that we can take back. But there's a little more demo to do, and then I'll get that probably cut out today and throw a piece on there and try to start with the load-bearing wall. I might get that far, and then we'll have to pick up tomorrow and rock and roll. But it can seem disappointing, but this whole area will be much better when we're finished, and it was not worth doing anything more unless you're going to do that much, in my opinion, now, because somebody's just been limping this place along for a long time. They did it ultra cheap materials, minimal materials, and clearly almost no know-how, no professional know-how here. It was sort of just somebody trying to figure it out on their own back in the 70s or something, early 70s. Okay, Believe it or not, I'm excited. I know it doesn't sound like it. I'm just getting over being sick, and didn't think we were going to have to do this, but got to find a groove and get in it, then we'll be feeling better. Get some tunes. All right, we'll see. Got these little squirrel boys. What you doing? There you go. Boop. All right, well, this didn't take very long. Thankfully, there were almost no nails holding the subfloor to the joists. Normally, if you get this far, it's just a war to rip and dig. I thought it would be all matched lumber. My dad would call it tongue and groove boards like it was over here, but that must have been the type of construction they did on these 2x10s with tongue and groove boards, which were nailed down relatively well, but they, came up pretty smoothly. As soon as I transitioned to the smaller lumber, though, it was plywood, and then, like I say, here's the pieces. I mean, there's hardly any little nails sticking out of them at all. There was one or two, long boys like that one, and then look at the rest of it. So I decided that since this needs to be a load-bearing wall, and it needs to be on subfloor, it also needs to be on the ends of the new 2x10 that replaces these. So I've got to take this all the way back to there and put 2x10s in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever here, back again, and then put enough glue and enough subfloor here to put the wall on and get underneath the roof system out to that point, and then stick something on that reaches out further to stay under the roof system. Then I'll feel comfortable demoing this out and finishing, continuing to demo the floor. And then when it's all 2x10, I can supplement the one full sheet of subfloor here and fill it all in. I could just put a sliver of subfloor, just enough for the wall once I put the framing in here, but that's not really the way that subfloor, it's a structural component. So I like to keep as large of a piece, in there as possible, which is the reason I'm going to such lengths, basically. There being few nails is going to make it easier. I thought I was going to dig this subfloor out from underneath the wall, but I will actually be leaving most of it. There'll just be a couple of inches that I'll leave. And then I'll take these pieces away, and I'll attempt to roll the new 2x10 underneath that little strip that's left. Mostly because it goes out onto the rim joist that's underneath the plate of this wall. So trying to rip it out from underneath the wall, in theory, if I could do that, which if you gave me $1 million, I could dig it out of there and use the Sawzall across the top of it and beneath, and then slam it all out of there. But there'd be a belly in the plate of the wall, and the weight of the roof would be sitting on that, and it would close and pinch, and it'd be a nightmare, and you'd never get new subfloor underneath it, and in the end, it's not worth it at all. So we'll go back a little bit more here, but not much. And so I guess I've got to go to the store and just drag enough 16-foot. It's 13 to the end of these. 14s would be nice, but I probably can't get them. 16s will be what I have to probably buy, but I'll buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that one over there, it's sitting down. It didn't even have a complimentary 2x10. It didn't go to anything. It was in there and the floor was on it, but it's just super bouncy right there. And that turned out to be where I cut the subfloor off, and then it was really deflecting. And I thought, holy shit, is it the subfloor material itself doing that much to strengthen this floor? I couldn't believe it. And it was really sketchy being out on there until I realized that was, because that end of that 2x6 never went to anything. Didn't ever go to nothing. Anyway, this is some real hillbilly shit. I'm still thinking about going out there and finishing the second floor out into that outside corner, getting out underneath the existing roof. Worst case scenario, that outside corner is too much of a cantilever. I mean, it's probably 4 feet technically. This would be a pair of 2x10s off of the concrete wall, doing way too much of a cantilever. But then this pair of this rim joist, I would be doing pairs when I went out and cantilevered that out. That's 4 feet. That's quite a bit there. Whether there's a collateral effect, a strengthening effect, because both ends of those cantilevers that are too long are connected to one another, and then the roof's underneath it. Worst case scenario, I'd have to put a pier in the ground outside and put a 6x6 treated post underneath the outside corner, and that could be finished another day. That would be worth. And all of that isn't really about gaining floor space up here. It's mostly about supporting the roof system and getting away from that. It's not even like it's well constructed and saggy because it's poorly supported. It's poorly constructed as well. And I don't think you're ever going to we'll have to see. I'm going to rip this wall out, and then I can rip the top, the soffit surface of that all down and let all the squirrel nest and shit fall out of it, and then really take and look at it objectively and critically and make a decision on that. So for now, I got to finish this much floor to get the wall back under the roof before it fucking caves in. Okay. All right, well, we tried to scramble and get to Sunbelt to rent this thing on a Saturday morning, but Jay's wiring on his pickup was a little hinky. They wouldn't let me leave without all the wires or all the lights working. Anyway, got down there Monday here. Had to sit around yesterday and the day before then. But we got her. Got in the basket here after I positioned it with the yard tractor. These little tow behinds, like Nifty, and this is JLG, I think. These are sweet. I mean, this JLG is light years ahead of the Nifty lift that I've used before. It's essentially the same thing. It's just, it looks the way that I would make it, you know, super well thought out. And not to pat myself on the back, but there's just getting the job done, and then there's doing a really nice job of getting the job done. Basket's all aluminum fabricated, no mechanical anything, you just lift that. You know, but this isn't a video about the lift. This is a significantly high-tech one-piece roof. It's just a glorified, like, probably HDPE tarp. That's a cool little jumping spider there. Anyway, UV stabilized and everything else. It looks like it went up in pieces though, or at least it's been, you know, obviously fitted around the mansard on those, in those areas. And then we have got no mansard section at the back. It just rolls all off into this gutter, which is completely fucking clogged. That downspout doesn't really work at all. And this is the side where all the water just pours off over the edge, over the lip, and you can see it's all green and shitty there. Anyway, this is that missing notch where underneath is just a soffit with, you know, done in plywood, and it's full of squirrel holes, and I'm sure it's full of squirrel nest. So we're essentially going to just take this aluminum siding all the way off this wall. I can see underneath the first couple that I ripped up. You want to stop at the top, start at the top and work downward, because that's the last. You start at the bottom and work up when you side with this type of thing. When we get there, you'll be able to see right through, and then we'll pull the shitty framing out. I'll have to carefully save that window. And before the sun goes down, I'd like to have this wall all opened up and out of here. And then we'll see what we have for reconstructability. Still thinking I want to carry the corner out there, although Jay doesn't love the idea of coming down to a footing down there. But it's like, this isn't appropriately constructed out here. It's just hanging out there, just sagging down. And so I could do a heavy-duty job of extending it here and get underneath that and force that to be well supported. But then you've got those two things out in space. Without engineering it and running it by my architect, etc., I think the safest thing to do is just put a foot on the ground. So, I don't know, we'll see what we're going to end up doing eventually at the end of the video. But for now, we've got some work to do. Alright, dudes and dudettes. It's official. This is just so piss poorly constructed. Subfloor doesn't continue out onto the rim joist. This is where the exterior wall had been framed, so it's like nobody understood that fundamental component of framing. I went up in the lift, it just came out now, but I got that sheet of plywood pulled out of this area. And somebody put a bunch of work into holding that out, you know, and shoring it up, and it's hard to see, but it just goes right downhill over there. And that's because nobody engineered. Not like I'm going to engineer this either, but I'm going to engineer it better than this. People just, whomever, just stuck a couple 2x6s from other projects or something. Just neither one of the ends is square. Just right out of the rough sawn pile or something, and just added them to the wall and took the angle of the roof out there as like a beam to support that cantilever. And it just, between that and those angled sticks, it's just not holding up. And we can't have this physicality in here. We can't have, that was below the drop ceiling before, but now we can't have this kind of crap sticking out. I would absolutely never soften that out, cover it up with drywall or anything. If it was doing its job 100% and, you know, stuff like that, I might entertain the notion, but this is all fakakta. So my immediate thinking is, I got to pull back the rest of this subfloor, which exposes the rim joist over there. And I can go downstairs and look at that too. And there's only a couple nails into the ends of these joists because that's all that were in the ends of the old and 2x6 over there. So I assume it's just a couple nails. I can sneak a Sawzall in there and slice those nails off and free up the ends of these joists. And then working from below, I can take out a few screws that are in from old to new, and I can take out the 5 screws that I used right along under there. Each of those got 5 screws, zip those out, and then just get behind them with a pry bar and walk those joists this way, not off of the outside plate, but 3 or 4 inches away from the wall, swoop, all the way along, working from above. And I could stand on a ladder and be at this floor at my waist or whatever, so I ought to be able to get underneath there, slide them all out from under that wall, essentially. Now, so I'll slide them out 2 inches, and then I'll slide a new 2x10 down in there until it stops against this situation here. So a new 2x10 in. And then that'll slide along. I'll have to beat it out there with a hammer, but I got the lift to work from, so I can do that. And then I'll be underneath the weight of the wall and everything that's on it up there, that much. Then I can shove those joists out another couple inches and make room for a second 2x10. And then when I put him in, I can use 2 7 or 2 3/8 ledge lock hardware and button those together into a beam, and then slide the joists back down and either toenail or toe screw them in there or put them in hangers. Hangers really don't keep them from pulling away, so just probably toenail them in. They're on the sill plate in the concrete block wall as a bearing, which is nice that it's on such a wide bearing because I can move them over that much. The sill plate's plenty wide enough, and I'll be on the sill plate with the double rim joist and at least 1 inch or 2 of the ends of all the joists. And if it isn't quite enough of the joist, then I will use a hanger. Anyway, then I'll have a pair of 2x10s out in space here, what amounts to 4 feet or so. And that's after this wall is all gone also. Get this wall right out of here. I may have to stick something on the side of this wall to go down and just hold for safety's sake, hold these few joists up here. Take this wall out of here. Put this window in this outside wall, so the bathroom layout options change. But then the new joist that goes next on layout here will be a 16 from there and a 16 from there. And I'll do that. I'll pass 16s. They'll pass, they only need, let's see, this is 16 here and need another 4 feet. So they'll pass nearly 12 feet and be buttoned all together with screws, but they'll go along that concrete block wall, and they'll cantilever out to that double on the end. And then the rim joist out here, I'll make a double beam as well, and I'll button that corner all together real nice and rigid, and then we'll lace the subfloor sheets and glue them all back out onto here. In fact, I may cut this back another bay just to get a nice big subfloor lace going out there, and then we'll go out there and we'll feel of it. But then I think I can go back and borrow a shore and shove that outside corner of that roof up. They didn't have a lot of power, but they had plenty of power to do that. One of those Sunbelt lifting shores that I was using. Push that outside corner up, and then I'll build a new outside wall right along out underneath it and right across the end and fill that in. That's after I got subfloor out there and all of that. And then, you know what else, too? Maybe I'll get a shore to the ground, just temporary. Because once I've got it out and it's all nice and rigid, and I build a wall underneath that roof system all nice and rigid, and then I can lace sheathing, too. My horizontal new OSB sheathing, I can get sheets that go right out there. And those are edgeways all trussed out onto this wall framing that's on concrete blocks, and then out onto wall framing that's not on concrete blocks. But that's all trussification out into that corner as well. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'm going to end up needing that column to the ground. In worst case scenario, we'll put a column to the ground, but I think we can get away without needing that column to the ground. Feeling frisky. It's where I'm going to be for the rest of what they had budgeted on this project, rather than helping them to insulate and putting all that drywall up that's downstairs. But that's the way that's the way I'd want it anyway. They don't want me doing drywall and insulation on finished, ready to go framing when as compared to doing those tasks, this is complicated, heavy duty, costly, hard to get somebody good, hard to get somebody who will do a nice job. Structural specialist task. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I got that 2x6 off, so I could take this 2x4 bullshit off of this joist and we could start thinking about making a transition out there. The other thing that I could do, I can't hide that, but I could build a roof system underneath this system out of 2x6 or 2x4 with the rafters going this way, and I could stick the end of it as like a ledger to the far side of this 2x10 and take it over there and build the wall underneath it over there. And then my ceiling plane would be smooth. And you wouldn't need a load-bearing wall here. But we are going to use a load-bearing wall there. So that's something to think about. Just thinking about planing that down and adding structural integrity in all one fell swoop. That'd be a cool solution, but I'll leave that to percolate. Anyway, end of the day. Start again tomorrow. We'll see. Okay, my sweet little babies. It's a new day. It's going to be 75, 76 degrees out. Beautiful blue sky. This is all shady till afternoon. And we've ripped this all out of here, as you can see. The new 2x10 is plastered to the side of that temporary wall I've got up underneath there. And as I took these couple of sticks out of this wall, I just cut them right in half with the Sawzall, and I'm looking for them to start grabbing the blade and pinching it, which tells me that it's still bearing a lot of load, which I wasn't getting after I was underneath it. And it sagged, you know, I was as tight as I could apply it. It still wanted to come down a little bit until it was sitting on there like a hair's breadth. So just want to be aware of, in theory, what you're doing, but also keeping your fingers on the pulse of the real life scenario. We'll go up and look, but that rim joist is bad in this area here. This rim joist is bad here from water damage, and the end of this one is a little bit fluffy. But the game now is, I just feel like, see all that 2x4 that's like soffit blocking? It's still pushing on the wall like this, and I believe that some of this weight's going around the corner and back in on that wall. I'm uncomfortable taking this wall out of here, because then there's nothing but that 2x10 and that pair of trash boards that are plastered to this wall holding this roof system up. And it's been settling and having trouble with all of these walls under it already. And so I don't want to continue to remove stuff, or I think we're really going to see, we could even see catastrophic failure in that. But worse than that, well, not worse than that, but just as bad for me, is having to pick it all way back up again. I haven't got anything here. It's all just spongy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this outside corner built out in rim joists and a couple of the joists out here from that far wall stacked onto this wall and cantilevering out here and buttoned into it, and get all out there to the point where I'm comfortable walking on it. And then I'm going to go get one of those shores and push up on that roof system from it until I'm comfortable with where that's at. And I may even get a second shore and put, Jay's got a couple squares of concrete, just like a foot or 2 feet square, or pavers or whatever. I'll throw something on the ground here to shore it up if it just starts getting driven down rather than pushing the roof system up. So we'll get a couple of them. They're cheap to rent, and we'll push that up where it belongs, and then we'll construct a couple pieces of wall underneath it to hold it there. The issue that I'm seeing now is there is no sill plate under any of this. And I don't know how we end up with one. Oh, the joists are notched up and over the sill plate in the rest of this building in that big garage section. But at the back, there's no notch and there is no sill plate. And so this like rim joist coming along here and then hanging out in space to here, even though it's attached at this end to the one that goes in there, when I'm pushing down on him, it's got bearing out here, but it could lift off at the back. There's nothing anchor it. Like I can't attach it to a sill plate, and the sill plate isn't bolted down into the concrete or anything like that to resist that lifting up. So the end treatment to the joist, the rim joist that goes down in that direction, will be important. I may put a sill plate on most of this, and I'll have to notch that joist because of that. And it'll only be worth it if I feel like I can Tapcon down through that sill plate into these concrete blocks in a meaningful way, which they're relatively new. I got to look at all of that. But let's go upstairs. First, we can see this hole I put through from outside and go into this bathroom. This is where I want to slide not one, count them, two. Oh, yeah, fucking honeybees in here. Cool. Love getting stung. There's my hole. Now I got to get in here, and these are those 12-inch centers, but I'm going to take 3 inches. I'm going to use a block that's 3 inches wide and throw a line down it, using it as a template with a Sharpie. Then I'll cut the line, and I'll be sure that I have 1/8 of an inch or something. I have some kind of a kerf beyond 3 inches where a pair of 2x10s can slide all the way down until they stop against that right through behind these. But see, again, no sill plate here, which is okay in this situation. because we're levering up against the weight of all that wall and everything. And really, in the end, that wall will be above us. The problem that I was describing outside before, the outside wall will be on that eventually, and the edge of the roof will be on that, and that will be enough to hold that down real well. So maybe that's good enough reason not to notch that rim joist. God, this whole thing is... I gotta walk all the way around to go up. So I suppose I'll have to get those two joists out in space, and then build enough of, put enough subfloor on that to build a wall up and underneath the roof on the far end of it, so that the cantilever end of it doesn't want to dip down any more than it will in the end, in theory. Which really, the more I finish everything, the better and better that gets, and I don't want to have to finish everything because we're up against a timeline with the lift and with the dumpster, and I got to put that whole wall in that dumpster before it goes in day after tomorrow, I want to say. So these are all the logistical things you got to do here. Yeah. So eventually this wall will be underneath here, and it won't want to lift out here for the sake of pushing out there, because it'll be pushing up on the wall and pushing up on the roof. But how to get everything in the right order is a question. This cast iron's in my way to some degree. So, yeah, that pair of blocks over there that are stuck. There's that whitish one, and then the one on top of it, they go out here. And then this compromised last rafter has got a couple new pieces under it with some plywood on it that trusses it out, and it comes around the corner, and it's held out around the corner on the outside a bit. But I just feel like these angled braces are doing some work here, and this system is doing some work here, and if I take this away, I don't know, I just don't have to until I get connected up out there. And then I can get over there, and then if I'm careful with where I put my subfloor down, I'll be able to continue to put full sheets in, and it's tongue and groove is the thing, and it's just really nice if you can put it all down one after another consecutively, drive the tongue and groove together tightly, which is important structural integrity. Anyway, this ought to be back together again in a couple of days. Just want to make sure and think of everything. All right, well, that worked out basically just how I planned it. We went up an inch over here, and that measurement from underneath this new 2x6 to this top surface of my joists here is about the same overall. I haven't checked it to like the surface of the roof. I'll do that to dial it in, and I make it another shore here in the middle, so I can really, if I'm not getting it to move like in a straight line, I'll have to dial in the center. But I think overall it very well might stay there without this load-bearing wall. I realize it looks really spindly, but the amount of movement that I haven't gotten out of anything, leads me to believe that usually, not that I forget stuff, but usually I see a little movement and I add a little something while I'm working, taking stuff away normally. And under no circumstances was that necessary during this so far, so that's pretty cool. Out here is nice and rigid. I gotta tag all these, to one another. I gotta shoot them together with nails or screw them together. We got 3 layers here. That's all gotta be attached through there, and those have got to be toe-nailed in on a layout there. I gotta dial that in. And then we got a couple more pairs of joists to send over here tomorrow. And then once everybody's married together and everything's on a layout, these 2x4s are just holding the layout real accurate. Oh, over here I had to add a little. There was a gap underneath these joists because I dialed this into as level as possible. Now this pair is sitting tight to the concrete, but when you take level out and around, the surface of these blocks is a little low. So I pumped that full of Loctite landscape adhesive, which has got like sand or something in it. You can hear it when it comes out. It kind of hissing and stuff. It's like toothpaste with a lot of grit in it. But it's a polyurethane adhesive. It's gray. It's for exterior use. But rather than trying to make mortar and push it in there or anything else like that with water and powder and this and that, I'm not a mason. And you can see over here where somebody had an issue with, this is the actual plane of the block, and they added like mortar and stuff here with like, they used halves of ceramic terracotta tile for underground back in the day to cover the gaps. They set it on there like that, and then they like put mortar or whatever around it, but you can see it doesn't bond worth a shit. And again, I'm not a mason, Anyway, that adhesive will 100% never come off of that wood anymore. So at the very least, that wood has a polymer, exterior grade polymer foot on it, or a standoff now that's solid and touches off on that concrete. If it sticks to the concrete, so much the better. And before I put those, once I got it underneath there real nice, I used a putty knife to push it and clean it off. I've got a little bit of a lip all along to hold my sheets, hold my sheathing outside. Feeling good. A couple more joists, put all the subfloor down, start a wall all the way along. I mean, any sort of 2/3 of the way, and I'll be able to take that out of there without worries. And then I can finish the subfloor over on this side and continue that wall around. Then we'll decide where we want to put the bathroom window that came out of here and the kitchen window that came out of here. Now, I'm going to tell you this now. I would like to see the kitchen primarily over there. And the wall, we still got to have a load-bearing wall here somewhere. We could cheat it over probably, to be honest with you. Probably be fine if the sister ring is over there and the wall's under it here, so long as these aren't doing a complete span. I'd cheat that back and put a bathroom over here if it was me, because then you have a door right into it here, and the kitchen is more segregated from it. You don't have a door out into it. So as of now, the door was going to be sort of here, and the kitchen starts here, and it's basically a bathroom door in the layout of the kitchen. Whereas if you were to put a wall here, you could send the front of the you could pull this out wider for the sake of pushing the front of the bathroom back a bit and keeping the wall a little proud of that, so that the bathroom door has a real physical separation from the kitchen, but it's still kind of open floor plan flow in here. And this door has to be replaced anyway, but you could replace it with an in-swing, a left-hand in-swing door, and then you could just hop inside and go right to the bathroom and pop right back outside again from the outside here, from the deck. Rather than running all the way through the whole house. Or, if you were to come in here, you'd go straight across through the kitchen, this whole area here with muddy shoes and stuff. It's just unhandy. This will be a residence, and if people are working out in the yard, this whole thing's going to have to be ripped off and rebuilt because it's garbage and it leaks. But for now, this is going to be an important doorway that stays. Anyway, ought to be able to take at least that one shore away tomorrow. Dumpster's full, and it's going to go tomorrow morning. We basically demoed out everything that we don't want. I mean, some of this insulation can get folded up and thrown away at another point, but there really isn't anything physically in here that's big, which is good. We might have gotten the 15-yard dumpster because we're a little concerned about how full the 10-yard dumpster got. She's heaping, helping. But we can burn stuff too, so. Well, as you can probably tell, I'm pooped. And now we can begin reconstruction, which is more fun and making things real nice. I think we'll probably put a 2x6 outside wall in for the money, just a little bit more thickness. We're going to have a relatively difficult time maintaining a temperature for the sake of being above the outside air over here, so we don't want to miss out on the opportunity to have better insulation in our walls, and obviously we'll have really good insulation in the ceiling. We will have to plane that ceiling down, not just for the sake of the look of it, but we also want to put our 30 at least in there. This is Western Pennsylvania. Should even have, I believe it's 49 or whatever, but 30 is way better than the 3 or 3.5 that it used to have. Okay, hell of a day's work. Well, we rolled up with 8 sheets of OSB subfloor. It's over $10 cheaper than plywood down here in Western PA, so that was worth it. I think it's 59 or 60 a sheet rather than 70 or 71. Sorry, this COVID's just hanging on in the form of just a little bit of a frog in my throat constantly, harking back to my OG YouTube video series. Actually, one of my most popular series, the first stuff I did a few years ago on removing a load-bearing wall. I had was getting over being sick and had a persistent throat clearing that everybody thought was annoying. Sorry, everybody, it's back. So, putting subfloor down. I forgot that me and Jay's father-in-law smashed this full-size 2x10 in under this floor on top of this wall downstairs. So this is worth checking out. These are the little things that people who want to move too quickly and just be productive for the sake of productivity. So this is the old floor joist system and stuff kind of going on here. But we went along down here and fortified these joists. We didn't bother doing these because they do far less of a span and they weren't as saggy as the rest of them. The big problem in this room was out here in the middle. So when you get over here, it was pretty all right, copacetic. But then up here, it was the first 2x6 in this kitchen floor system that is the reason that we're doing all this work up there. So because of that and the ability for animals to come around and underneath that before I had fully made up my mind, hadn't been up here, hadn't been thinking about this yet, we slammed a 2x10 in tight to that 2x6. So what you see up here, oh, it's too late now. Anyway, the 2x6s are the old timber here. This is the edge of the 2x10, but it carries the actual plane of this floor now as a result of, where's my finger? As a result of being jammed up underneath this plywood. You can see the gap underneath from here to there. So before I hadn't trimmed back this far, I'd only exposed the middle of this joist. And sitting on that, we were going to have a bad transition from this subfloor to this subfloor. Now this has underlayment on it, or it's actually wall paneling that somebody put down face down in tiny little pieces, but it's about 1/4 of an inch. And after the kitchen cabinets go in here, you'll put another 1/4 of an inch underlayment on the floor around everything but those. And that's underlayment, and that's so that can be used to tear up the flooring and change the look of the flooring without having to dig it out from underneath cabinets and stuff. Cabinets are always installed on subfloor, and walls are built on subfloor. Then underlayment is added, and it's thicker if you have intentions of doing things like tile and stuff like that, or hardy board can be used as underlayment. I believe they want a tile in here, and therefore they'll be putting that, probably a layer of hardy on here. Anyway, now that subfloor sheet is perfectly coplanar to the old subfloor sheet underneath here, and that was worth, I had to dig this piece out when I realized it. I put that one in, then I got to here, put it all, not all down because I haven't center nailed these, I nail my edges, and then when I'm all done, I'll snap chalk lines from one end to the other, from the wall lines to the wall lines over there, and then I'll just go through and walk in back and forth. I'll shoot everything down to finish the day. So anyway, that was worth addressing. Another thing we did was button that new pair of 2x10s that go from out here all the way back in there behind these joists. That I actually cut these out. I blathered for probably 45 minutes in the last video about how I intended to unbuckle those and slide them over. To hell with that. I was able to pull a couple subfloor boards back here and then just sawzalled down a line to open that up enough, and then we went out there in the lift and slammed those in with the hammer. The outer layer, so the two go in next to the current rim joist, which had like a fluffy water damagey end, which you can kind of see the beginnings of here. So I cut him back 1 foot or so with a straight end, and then put that much new 2x10 in on the concrete wall. So you've actually got a triple layer beam here, fully married together with 4.5 inch ledge lock top and bottom. And so that's really, really rigid and significant. And then this double comes out here, and like we talked about before, I got construction adhesive underneath those on top of that concrete plate. And for the purposes of pushing, I'm under it with a shore there, and I'm pushing up here. However, I'm going to probably need to do a little bit of musical chairs now. So as I put these sheets down, I've been pulling the tape and making sure that I'm keeping these on layout, because you can be, especially on long runs, anything over 8 feet, you can be where you want to be on both ends, but these can wander and stuff in the middle. And then it's a mess later when I say you can snap a chalk line and shoot everything all down. Yeah, well, not if they're not perfectly straight. So I just check my layout on every 4-foot edge as I go across. And by the time you're more than halfway across, you really can't be out at all. And then the way that I walk those around is just with a piece of 2x4 edgeways. You can just kind of use a lever this like that, or like this, and it'll move those back and forth as you look at them. And then you can just shoot them with the nail when you get there. And another check when you snap your chalk lines too is your chalk line should proceed through the edge nail that you've got here and your edge nail there. And in this case, the seam, it'll essentially be on the seam too. And if you're real careful about everything, it seems like it's not necessary. Rough guys don't like to be this careful. It slows me down a little bit. However, since I always do these checks, I'm quite quick at doing these checks. And these checks are the type of thing that'll keep you out of major trouble. And being too rough with rough framing can really get you into big trouble if you're not careful. So we're just going to continue this way. And we're being pretty economical either way here. It's working out great for the amount of conditioning and improvement that we're making. That's just thrown in place. I talked a lot, again, probably 30 minutes, about how careful I was going to be about locating that sheet. That was before we decided to wipe this wall all out of here. So I only edge nailed that anyway, and I think I even used... you also don't want to use ring shank if you can help it, if you're just tacking things. So if I'm running around shooting stuff and tacking them, I'll use a bright, or these are glue dipped a little bit, but they're just a smooth, bright nail, and then it'll just pull out really smooth and easy. On the other hand, if I would just as soon use screws, or I'm sure about something and I'm making a commitment, I'll use a ring shank, which a lot of times you'll rip the head off before you can dig it right back out of new lumber that you just shot it into, and it's as good as a screw connection, in my opinion. And that's what I'm putting these down with. However, I'll use shorter. I'm using 2-inch or 2 3/8, probably 2s. I'll shoot these down, and they've been glued too with my favorite old PL subfloor. We couldn't get the 28 ounce tubes. These are what are these? 12 ounce or something? 10? I fucking forget. Anyway, little tubes, no problem. About 1 tube per sheet. Yep. All right. All right, just a quick update. We're going to put the bathroom on the right-hand side and put the kitchen over here. The dividing wall is going to take off from that 2x6. It's going to return our drywall to either side of a 2x4 wall that comes down here. And somewhere here, essentially, probably lined up with this stairwell wall. That'll be the front of the bathroom, and there'll be a door in there. There'll be a window right in the center back with a shower, a 60-inch wide shower base justified to the right-hand side, and like a seat on the left-hand side with a built-in alcove there. And then this will be kitchen with a window over the sink, a southern-facing window over the kitchen sink, a nice big, like, sort of picture window feature here for an eat-in dinette set here, and kitchen all along and around the corner with the stove on the far end, and another the big window, the window over the sink. I think that maybe is all there are for windows in here, and the wall through here. So I had to play a little musical chairs here, and I unbuttoned this temporary wall from the floor and kicked it over onto the most recent sheet, put it back, and then let go of the ceiling and tipped it back up plumb. I didn't check it, and then I had enough room to keep going with sheets here. Then I had to take that shore out of the corner because the next sheet would be kind of in the way of the foot of it. But I'm underneath this outside edge with this new 2x6 wall to this extent, which has this held up as well as leaving this trash on there still, so it's no problem. I'll get this much more subfloor on, and then I'll just double check that. So I've been maintaining, I get a plate on the ceiling and a plate on the floor, and I've maintained the same distance, 107 even all the way down, and I'm going to continue to do that all the way over to here. At some point here, I'll take this shit out so I can just keep going and around the corner. And we want a 2x6 wall to this wall, and then it'll start with the 2x4 existing and keep going, and you won't see that transition anywhere. I believe I'm going to slice the plate out of the bottom of that wall. Once I'm back out here with the shore, and I've gotten a weight on this sheathing, on these boards, I'll slice along underneath those studs and along behind the sheeting and at the end, and I'll slide that plate out, and that's a true 2-inch thick. And then I'll be able to slide subfloor underneath this wall, so that's constructed correctly again. And that's 3/4 of an inch, so I'll just need to take a quarter or so off of those studs to fit that plate in on top. However, I think I might also remove those studs. I'll probably just cut at the back of those right out like I did at the beginning of last year. But I'm going to save this sheathing because it's match lumber, it's tongue and groove, it ought to stand there just fine. It's a bit fluffy here. We'll take it back to where it makes sense. You know, that's another consideration because I want to use zip system on the outside of this to sheath it, and that's like 7/16 of an inch. And this is more like at least 5/8, if not 3/4. So we're going to need to, I might put 3/4, subfloor sheets. I may put this OSB on this sheathing to the corner and then pick up and go with zip system across the back. The nice thing about the zip system is I haven't got to get back up there with Tyvek. And in this case, they'd have a 100-foot roll. I don't want to do course after course after course of Tyvek. I could. It's just a bear by yourself to make it look nice and to get it all on there. And then if I got 10-foot Tyvek, I could pull one, 100-foot roll. I'd have 75 feet left over. It's just one of those things. So as far as I got to double check the pricing, but I'd probably just put zip on the back. Oh, I got to this point, and these doubles are in hangers because they're not on any bearing, and then the block wall came through, and it was actually corner to corner, the block wall to the bottom corner of this double. And maybe we should get into the lift to look at this. Wonder if I can. Yeah, I can ride the lift. So, when we go down here and take a look, what are you, getting started already? Mr. Carpenter Bee thinks he's going to move into the wood hole. Out of my wood hole, Bee. This area is going to be soffitted down here, and we had squirrel ingress problems before when this surface was up there. So in a lot of ways we've improved things, but in some ways we want to be cognizant of the fact that we're asking for it again, essentially. So under here, you can see the back corner of that double worked out right at the outside corner of this block, but you can see that plate, that 2x6 that I slammed down in there, and then I used these 4.5s. I don't know why, to be honest with you. Could have used the shorter ones. Anyway, they don't come up top, but I was able to drive them in just right along here with a long driver bit and go right into the edge of that 2x6 that's back there. That makes this all solid wood. So not only am I returning whatever sheet good that I put on here, it isn't a matter of finding the widest area here for, Mr. Stinkbug or Mr. Carpenter Bee or whatever else. I'm also going to come out here at some point and pump these cracks full of polyurethane adhesive. This corner block wanted to come right off of here. We're slowly but surely coming at the fact that someday the problems here that this has, get out of here, will have to be solved most likely by holding it off its current block walls and smashing those out and getting rid of them and making an appropriate foundation and doing a new, block wall, because it's just not, it hasn't been taken care of. Now, I got to make a repair here, obviously. That was that mortar that fell all off of there before I realized how I have to just be more careful with it. Oh, don't try this at home. Anyway, just wanted to show that I realized that before I covered it up, because you'd never get in here. At the far end of this bay, it can be seen from that laundry room downstairs, but I had to do this much here and as far as I could reach, and then I can reach that far again before. My priority has been to put the surface on, get the wall in here, underneath this roof in here, which allows me to... the outside wall, get the sheeting on it, whatever I do with the outside of it, because I only have a couple days with this lift, and I want to do that from the lift. That's one of the whole priorities, the whole reasons that we got the lift. We've done some tree work with it, but there are some things on the front of this building, an old electrical service I want to pull down, some tree limbing to do, and some other unrelated to this project stuff we wanted to get. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be close to $1,500 for that 1 week with that lift, so we want to make headway with that. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel so rushed. So anyway, I just remembered this in the nick of time. I capped that off. I used a 2x6. I might have used a 2x8 if I had one laying around. I might have to put a 2x10 in there now that I'm thinking of it. I just don't like those openings down into the block. But the thing is, as soon as you start around the corner, you still have those openings. And I'm not going to go to the time and effort to cap them. Boy, I better not say something like that, because you know me, I'll be doing that soon. I just don't like cavities that you can't get to later. They just make homes for varmints. All right. Well, really making some progress here. We chose zip system for the outside, so now that we've got most of the sheeting up, we don't have to do any wrapping. Got Jay's help, so we've been moving twice as fast around here. Got a couple window holes to finish cutting out, a couple cripple studs to put in, and we have the lift for the more than half of tomorrow, but that's it. I think we're going to finish on time with it. We just got some sliver pieces to put in up top. Over here, these old sheathing boards were 3/4 of an inch thick, and we didn't want to buy just a tiny little bit of wrap just to cover 3/4 inch subfloor as sheathing over here, because we would have to use it around the corner. So we put just a layer of 7/16 OSB and then the zip system on top. I'll just, where this blend happens, I'm going to use a stud under both of them rather than trying to be in the middle of just one. And I'll use a shim behind these and just float them out so that it's flush outside, and that you'll never notice that little transition, and the siding won't be anything. Bees keep trying to build houses in here. But, yeah. Bathroom wall goes underneath right where this 2x4 is, but we just had that for just to kind of get a feel for things. And then we're going to have to start and plane the ceiling down to match the rest of this building, but I think that's going to go pretty smooth. And we're going to put a beam in here, up in there, a 2x10 3-layer beam, sitting in the wall on solid packed framing here, sitting in this wall at the corner on a packed solid corner, and then we'll plane the ceiling down to the level that the bottom of the beam is, so the beam will be hidden completely inside, and this will be clear span in here forevermore, so long as you keep this wall or keep that column on this corner of the stairwell. So although, you know what, it might be just as easy to go to this wall, so that in the future, they had spoken about taking the stairs away. You would be stuck with one stair or another. I don't know. We'll have to look at that, but it's looking real professional out here. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right, well, to be honest, things are well under control, but they have spread farther than I had imagined, but I don't know what I was thinking. I was being optimistic. We got the gutter off the back, and this construction, we'll call it, was all added in new construction for the sake of being able to complete this new roof system onto this building. Someone was well aware that this wall was all rotten and fakakta and that there was nothing to meaningfully attach to there. So they just hung a couple 2x4 or 2x6 sticks across filled with plywood and then applied some siding to it once they wrapped the edge of the roof around. We're going to get it off of there so we can continue up with this zipular system. On these side walls we have to add OSB first and then zip so that we have closer to an inch, because the existing tongue and groove is almost 3/4 or a little more, so you won't notice that difference there. And upstairs Jay is working on making a tunnel through the 2x6 rafters that are too small so that we can put a 2x10 beam through, hang the rafters on the beam in joist hangers, and then plane that ceiling down further to come in with the rest of the 2x10 ceiling. Got this torn open. This was all just sugarcane press board and squirrel holes and squirrel nests and everything else. Ooh, smells good in here. So we put a mark on the floor. I just thought it'd be nice because this end of this beam is going to be in the wall, and you want to be under it like a column. And we had a king and a jack from this window already, so I figured if we just added 2 layers, that'd be a nice place to put the 2 layers of beam. So whatever distance that was from the inside wall, I just copied over to here. And then Jay put the laser through both marks, which makes a plumb line on the ceiling. And then after he's done cutting, he can measure to 3 inches and cut the second line, which will be plenty of room to install the beam. Glad I put the sill plates or sill pans on the windows last night because we got rain today. Now we're going to go back to using the lift. Cool. Well, Jay's trying to finish underneath this area here so that we can put soffit back in. We got zip all the way up inside, which is good, and all the way down. Tore that piece of crap wall extension thing all off this morning. Went right on up behind the framing all the way up with zip all the way along. So it's finished over that last rim, that rim board or rafter that's out there, smooth. Now over here, we had all this squirrel issues and stuff out here. In the end, this overhang for the porch had a ledger on the wall right here. But I can't, it's essentially right underneath. It was tight to the soffit. Now, not only did that make a little place for the squirrel to sit and work at drilling his way up inside, which is a good reason not to, you know, if this had been one in the same roof system, he would have had to have come under here and started to dig and you know, work under here where you would see it, and, you know, you could get ahead of him. So anyway, the blocks that stood this mansard roof off, I cut those out. I took everything back up to what's finished up there already or is blocked or what have you. It's the knee wall surface of the mansard that sticks up off the flat plane of the roof up there, so we just have to sheathe up to there. And so now I gotta have a layer of OSB here and a layer of zip, and then we're done all the way to the right height. Then we could tape the corner, then we can put the vinyl corners on, and put the windows in and go around those with J-channel, and then we can fill up from the bottom with vinyl clapboard. And I'm going to use aluminum drip edge along the bottom of the wood construction just to promote kicking that water off and down the front of that block rather than letting it get underneath at all. So then everything will connect up to where the sheathing matched lumber ended on this building here and here. Oh, we got this packed out with 3 layers under there, 3 layers here that's not quite done. I got to put the rest of that, and then 3 layers down on the other side that sit on the outside wall. And Jay, like we looked at before, is working on clearing this out, and we'll get a beam coming from that wall and hanging on a double hanger here on this beam here, which will mean that any kind of wall layout will fly in here in the future. But for now, the bathroom is going to go in this location, and we're just honing in on. Then we got to find a way to put the one-piece roof edge back down with a new gutter. We got a new gutter that we're gonna have installed, and simple as that. Just a little bit more. A couple months, 3, 4, 6 months, 10 months or so, we'll be all done. Hey, all right. Now we've really got a structure here. All kinds of stuff that happened in here. I ended up adding 2 new layers to that last 2x10 to create a beam, and packed up the wall underneath both ends. Can't see it behind that end cap, but there's a couple more layers of 2x6 back here. It's not ideal to have big chunks of wood because of thermal bridging from the outside to the inside. It doesn't have a great R value, but it'll be worth it in this case, because now this beam, though it'll do that span, and it's taking this beam that we put in here the way I normally remove a load-bearing wall. Now I've got the ends of all those 2x6 rafters on that. However, this wall isn't completely necessary, so for as long as the stairwell wall is underneath this beam, it's helping it out, but it can completely go away, and this stairwell can be filled, and this wall is non-load bearing, and essentially this whole stairwell could be removed, and the stairs could be taken somewhere else in the building, rerouted or something in the future, which is the point of this, which gives people flexibility here to have a true clear span footprint and put walls wherever they want in here now. I will have to plane down this ceiling, but I think rather than changing the orientation of the framing, I'll just put a 2x4 across the face of the top of that wall and across the face of the top of that wall, and then we'll just go through underneath every one of these rafters that are actually bearing the roof, and just aligned to them, translate the face of them down so that the face of the ceiling can be at this 2x10. And then the layout's the same. 2 courses of insulation is the same in the ceiling, and the screw layout and the way that we're putting drywall sheets up is the same, and I think that's just for the best. Now, up front, it's been a while since I was in here, but this has been completely insulated and wired and stuff prior to that, so this is almost ready for insulation. We're going to come in here, drywall. Got the closet and stuff set up. This has got to get covered. This wall that I'm walking through needs to be enclosed. Got a doorway over there. This wall needs to be extended, but and now we have a bathroom here. So this wall goes up. It's the front of it's somewhere here, and now the kitchen will be fridge, counter, stove, and then a sink right underneath this window. Some upper cabinets here, upper cabinets there, and this is like a dinette or an eat-in kitchen, so table for 4 to 6 people here. It's a nice big, cheap as shit window that we found from, it's an insert. No, I had a nail flange on it, so it just needs an extension jamb inside, made out of AZAC or whatever plastic. Now these are the old window inserts that are installed to a wood jamb when you replace a shitty old wooden window. They're installed here. I took them out of the jamb that was built out of press board, and we built an AZAC PVC plastic jamb. This has got a downhill angle to this sill inside. It's level outside for what little there is. It's got foam all the way around. The openings were all flashing tape 100%. I got a heavy pan gasket material on the bottoms of everything, and everything was installed into a bead of caulking. Now we built this jamb over here also, Jay did, but it doesn't have a downward angle on it. It's just all one piece of that plastic. And the windows are vinyl, so everything's PVC now. You might have bought new windows, but we had those, and we just made plastic jambs, installed them outside.
like you would a new window. Wrapped them in AZAC trim and white J-channel, white outside corner, and then this moss or something. It's like a greeny gray. I'm not quite done with the siding, but it's a Dutch lap. This new phone will play music while I make a video, and now I don't know if that music will be on this video or ruin this video. That'll be fun, huh? At least it's something chill and not just a bunch of heavy metal. So that's practically sided. The big hold up here is conventionally, this is a very weird situation to take the one-piece roof off between the ends of these mansard sections, and that extension that was on there, or that added piece, was taller, so the opening behind the mansard, where are we? Right there, so we had to add a block behind that, and we're going to have to somehow flash the end, reflash the end of it. Now that's mostly white trim coil. We're going to have to reflash the end of it with fresh new white, and then we'll put J-channel up there and take the siding up underneath the one-piece roof, then put the one-piece roof down with some kind of ad hoc edge material, attach it, and then attach the gutter under it, and then everything gets lap caulk, which is a flexible, it's an EPDM or something like that. It stays flexible exterior sealant. So a bit of messing around. We've had the lift so long now that we've got it for the month. Given what we spent for a week and a half, it's better to just keep it for the rest of this month. So that'll help us out. Okay. This overhang worked out no problem. When I took the shore out, it spun it a little bit and immediately came loose. We got no settling out of that. We're going to block under here. Fill that with solid blocking. We did drip edge like this all the way along the bottom edge. So it's white aluminum drip edge that wraps, and it was nailed high, and then also was given a bead of OSI quad under the edge of it, and then flashing taped across the top of it. So hopefully we've got a nice little white kicker at the bottom edge of the siding that kicks and drips everything down the outside face of the block and doesn't pull it around underneath. This, I think he'll end up, we're going to solid insulate this and block again for the critters, but I think it'll just be a panel of relatively heavy factory white coated aluminum that will apply to the underside, so it's just, again, like critter proof. And over here, still got the zip. Now we were able to get up underneath the entire, I don't know if I can get that to exposure there, but anyway, we took zip system all the way up underneath the mansard roof to the top of this fundamental rectangular prism. And before, it was not. At the back, it had been compromised. It was a rectangular prism space with the mansard built on the outside of it for the rest of the building, but this back area is just so shitty. And so, as you saw up here, probably, I don't know, in the last video, we went all the way up underneath that with sheathing, took it up to the rim board of the rafter system, so it's completely sealed here. No more Mr. Squirrels getting into this thing and then coming in the house. That's sealed all the way up. And we're going to extend, we'll put a ledger on here and put another piece of 2x4 out here, block out, controlling it for straightness and on a frequency that allows us to carry soffit and put that in. But I had to cut this shitty old roof system back to get access to the part, you know, to put this in here. This all needed to be demoed someday, but now we're getting rainwater in here because I needed it back far enough to proceed with the follow through of the Sawzall blade. I might have been able, my first thought was to keep it under here so the water still drained for the interim, but I couldn't be sure that the follow through of the Sawzall blade wasn't going to trash that roof, so I had to cut it back to where there's an opening for moisture. So, but you can see the sheathing is all across the back up there, and there are actually old boards up there, so that'll be fine. We got a little bit of a repair here to make, otherwise they could come right in and be a perfect Pixar movie. I was thinking for squirrels to run along in there and pop right into the kitchen cabinet to get food. What a nice little place. Don't anybody tell them. I won't tell them, you won't tell them, nobody will tell them. Oh, lots and lots of work. Now we're gonna frame in this wall, which is 2x6 because it's technically exterior. Downstairs isn't heated yet. We're gonna have laundry and that outside bathroom under this floor that's unheated, but it'll have to stay above freezing, which will help the floor not be bitter cold, and this will have a lot of insulation in here. And we're going to try and keep, I mean, the kitchen sink will go to the left here, and we won't have any more water supply or anything necessary in this wall. And this is the bathroom now, so it'll be over that laundry room, and the laundry room will have to stay warmer. It's got a hot water tank downstairs, and it's well insulated. We're going to insulate that. Maybe we'll look at that real quick. Take a little light down there.
Again, with this frog in the throat that I can't get rid of. So down here, it's still got insulation waiting for the ceiling and drywall. But this laundry room has got this heavy lower wall is actually all like fibrous insulation down here. 2 layers of like this stuff here. But there is wood in there. See this piece of wood sticking up here and a piece of wood sticking up there. So I think I'll clean those ends off and put some kind of framing cap on those that carries the front edge of it out to about a 1/2 inch back from the face of this stuff. And then I'll go up with studs and put a top plate on around here. Again, we got to block this off from outside. But I'll frame a thick wall, and then we'll add insulation to that wall. And then when we drywall the face of it, that drywall will blend into the face of this stuff here. Or maybe we'll bring it out so far that it flies right down over the surface of this stuff. I'm unsure. This looks pretty well finished. It's pretty darn smooth. So there's a chance we just blend up to it and then paint it together. It's just hard sometimes to finish drywall to other things like that. But then that room will have good insulation and a hot water tank running in it. And overall stay above freezing, I would think, and keep that bathroom plumbing, make it so that's got no issues. Whew. So that's the state of things for right now. I gotta run home and take a little breaky poo and then hopefully come back and do a little more. I might get a little farther and do one more video before I leave because I gotta work today, but we're getting closer and closer to starting. Now we got a flashing break. We got a piece that came off the house and some of the way that we're finishing the top of the roof system at the back. We're going to do some flashing. I'm going to put a 2x10 up and flash it with trim coil, which we got somewhere in a box. It's here somewhere. All right, trust me, this is really headed somewhere.